The red sands of Mars bore witness to humanity's greatest technological catastrophe and its most profound spiritual awakening. During the 25th millennium, as Terra writhed in the agony of the Age of Strife, the fourth planet from Sol became both sanctuary and crucible for the descendants of human colonists who would reshape the very nature of mankind's relationship with technology. What emerged from the irradiated wastelands and collapsing atmospheric processors was not merely another human civilization, but something fundamentally different, a fusion of flesh, steel, and unwavering faith that would echo through the millennia. The original colonization of Mars had begun during humanity's first great expansion into the stars, when standard template construct systems guided massive generation ships across the void. These early settlers brought with them the accumulated knowledge of Terra's golden age, establishing vast mining operations and atmospheric processors that gradually transformed the barren world into something approaching habitability. Sprawling industrial complexes dotted the Martian surface, their towering spires reaching toward the thin atmosphere, while deep bore shafts penetrated the planet's crust in search of rare minerals and archaeotech deposits. When the Age of Strife descended upon humanity like a shroud of madness and war, Mars found itself cut off from Terra by warp storms of unprecedented ferocity. The carefully maintained supply lines that had sustained the red planet's growing population simply vanished, leaving millions of colonists stranded on a world that remained fundamentally hostile to human life. The atmospheric processors began to fail without regular maintenance shipments from the home system. Vast hydroponic farms withered as their delicate nutrient systems broke down. Most catastrophically, the knowledge needed to repair and maintain the advanced technology that kept Martian civilization alive began to fragment and disappear as the educated technical classes fell victim to plague, warfare, and the simple passage of time. The collapse was neither immediate nor uniform. Some industrial centers managed to maintain their operations for decades, even centuries, by cannibalizing equipment from abandoned facilities and hoarding increasingly precious technical manuals. Others fell swiftly to mechanical failure, their populations fleeing into the deep cavern systems that honeycombed Mars's subsurface. The planet's surface became a patchwork of functioning enclaves surrounded by vast stretches of dead machinery and toxic wasteland, where the skeletal remains of great works stood as monuments to humanity's lost capabilities. It was in this crucible of technological desperation that the first stirrings of what would become the cult Mechanicus began to manifest. Faced with machines they could no longer fully understand, the surviving Martian colonists began to develop new approaches to technology that blended practical necessity with emerging spiritual beliefs. The complex quantum cogitators that had once been programmed through standardized interfaces now required elaborate ritual procedures to coax into operation. Ancient manufacturing systems would only respond to specific combinations of binary cant and physical manipulation that bore increasingly little resemblance to their original operating procedures. The transformation was gradual but inexorable. Technical specialists who had once approached their work with purely rational methodologies found themselves developing increasingly elaborate ceremonies around the maintenance and operation of critical systems. What began as superstitious behavior born of desperation slowly evolved into a coherent belief system that elevated technology from mere tool to objective reverence. The machines that kept Mars alive were no longer simply mechanisms to be operated. They were manifestations of a higher power that demanded proper worship and appeasement. Central to this emerging theology was the concept of the Omnissiah, a divine entity that was believed to embody all knowledge and technological perfection. The early adherents of this belief system viewed the Omnissiah as the source of all mechanical wisdom, the guiding intelligence that had originally inspired humanity's greatest technological achievements. Every functioning machine was seen as a fragment of the Omnissiah's infinite consciousness, every successful repair a communion with divine knowledge. This theological framework provided not only spiritual comfort to the beleaguered Martian population, but also a practical methodology for dealing with increasingly incomprehensible technology. The role of standard template construct fragments in shaping these early beliefs cannot be overstated. Scattered across Mars were countless repositories of STC data, ranging from complete manufacturing protocols to corrupted fragments that contained only partial information about long-lost technologies. These data cores became objects of intense veneration, treated as sacred texts that contain the literal word of the Omnissiah. The process of extracting usable information from damaged STC systems required patience, intuition, and what the early tech adepts came to describe as divine inspiration. Each successful recovery of STC data was treated as a miraculous revelation, reinforcing the belief that technology was not merely a human creation, but a gift from a higher power. The fragments revealed tantalizing glimpses of humanity's lost capabilities, designs for weapons that could level mountains, vehicles that could traverse the void without conventional propulsion, manufacturing systems that could transform raw matter into complex devices with minimal human intervention. The fact that most of these technologies remained beyond the colonists' ability to reproduce only strengthened their conviction that such knowledge was inherently sacred and required proper spiritual preparation to comprehend. The hierarchical structure that would come to define Martian society emerged directly from the practical necessities of STC fragment recovery and technological maintenance. Those individuals who demonstrated particular aptitude for communing with machine spirits and extracting meaning from corrupted data cores naturally assumed positions of leadership within their communities. These early tech adepts formed the nucleus of what would eventually become the Adeptus Mechanicus, establishing the first formal doctrines that govern the proper approach to technological worship. The process of technological recovery required specialized knowledge that could only be passed down through careful mentorship and long apprenticeships. A tech adept might spend decades learning to properly interpret the symbolic languages embedded within STC fragments, mastering the ritual procedures necessary to activate dormant systems, and developing the intuitive understanding of machine behavior that marked true expertise. This created a natural hierarchy based on demonstrated competence and accumulated knowledge, with the most skilled practitioners achieving positions of authority within the growing technological priesthood. The establishment of the first forged cities marked the transition from scattered survival communities to a unified Martian civilization. These massive complexes combined industrial capability with religious purpose, their towering spires serving simultaneously as manufacturing centers, temples to the Omnissiah, and repositories for recovered STC data. The largest of these early forged cities grew around particularly significant archaeological sites where major caches of archaeotech had been discovered, their populations swelling as tech adepts from across Mars made pilgrimages to study the sacred machines. Each forged city developed its own particular specializations and traditions, reflecting the types of technology that had been recovered in their vicinity. Some focused on the manufacture of weapons and military equipment, their forges echoing with the rhythmic hammering of powered assembly systems. Others specialized in the production of complex electronic systems, their workshops filled with the soft humming of quantum processors and the acrid smell of exotic metals. Despite these differences, all forged cities shared certain fundamental characteristics: massive industrial capacity, elaborate temple complexes dedicated to the Omnissiah, and rigid hierarchical structures that governed every aspect of technological production. The social organization of these forged cities reflected the deeply ingrained belief that knowledge was sacred and must be carefully protected. Access to the most sensitive technical information was restricted to the highest-ranking tech adepts, who guarded their secrets with religious fervor. Lower-ranking members of the technological priesthood were granted access to increasingly advanced knowledge as they demonstrated their worthiness through years of faithful service and successful completion of ritual trials. This system ensured that critical technical capabilities would not be lost through carelessness or betrayal, while maintaining the motivation for continued advancement within the hierarchy. The physical transformation of Mars during this period was dramatic and far-reaching. The planet's surface became dominated by the towering structures of the forged cities, their industrial complexes connected by networks of underground transit tunnels and surface transport systems. Vast mining operations stripped entire mountain ranges to provide raw materials for the growing manufacturing base. The thin Martian atmosphere grew thick with the exhaust of countless industrial processes, while the night sky glowed with the reflected light of forge fires that never dimmed. The population of Mars underwent its own transformation during this period, as the demands of technological worship began to reshape human physiology and behavior. The constant exposure to industrial pollutants and exotic radiations gradually altered the genetic structure of the Martian colonists, while the increasing integration of mechanical augmentations blurred the line between flesh and steel. Tech adepts began to replace failing biological organs with mechanical alternatives, viewing such modifications not as medical necessities, but as steps toward greater communion with the Omnissiah. This process of gradual mechanization was driven by both practical and theological considerations. The harsh environment of Mars made biological augmentation a survival necessity, while the demands of working with increasingly complex technology required enhanced sensory capabilities and processing power that unmodified human biology could not provide. More fundamentally, the growing belief system of the cult Mechanicus held that flesh was inherently weak and corruptible, while mechanical systems represented perfection and eternal function. The development of the binary cant that would become the sacred language of the Adeptus Mechanicus began during this period as a practical solution to the problem of communicating complex technical information across the various forged cities. The mathematical precision of binary code made it ideal for describing mechanical processes and system specifications, while its digital nature resonated with the emerging belief that all knowledge could ultimately be reduced to fundamental mathematical relationships. As the cant evolved, it acquired increasingly ritualistic overtones, with specific binary sequences taking on sacred significance beyond their purely informational content. The theological implications of binary cant extended far beyond mere communication. The early tech adepts came to believe that the Omnissiah's true thoughts could only be expressed through the pure logic of mathematical relationships, and that biological languages were inherently flawed approximations of divine truth. This belief reinforced the growing conviction that mechanical augmentation was not merely beneficial, but spiritually necessary for those who sought to truly understand the sacred mysteries of technology. As the forged cities grew in power and influence, they began to establish formal relationships with one another, creating the first planetary government that Mars had known since the beginning of the Age of Strife. These alliances were based on mutual technological exchange and shared religious beliefs rather than traditional political considerations. Forged cities that possessed particularly valuable STC fragments or manufacturing capabilities found themselves at the center of complex networks of obligation and mutual dependence that gradually evolved into the unified Martian state. The emergence of the first fabricator general marked the formal unification of Mars under a single technological theocracy. This individual, chosen from among the most accomplished tech adepts of the various forged cities, wielded authority that was simultaneously political, religious, and technical. The position represented the culmination of the hierarchical system that had emerged from the practical necessities of technological recovery, combining supreme expertise in the sacred arts with the administrative capabilities necessary to govern an entire world. The unification of Mars under the first fabricator general had barely stabilized when the warp storms that had isolated humanity's scattered worlds began to subside in the late 30th millennium. As the tempestuous energies of the Imperium calmed to levels that permitted interstellar navigation, the red planet's augur arrays detected something that sent waves of excitement and apprehension through every forged city on the planet's surface. Terra, the ancient birthplace of humanity, was transmitting again. More significantly, the signals indicated that someone had not only survived the Age of Strife, but had begun the systematic conquest and unification of humanity's home world. The initial contact between Mars and Terra came through carefully modulated Vox transmissions that pierced the residual warp interference still plaguing the inner system. The messages emanating from Terra spoke of a figure known as the Emperor of Mankind, a being of immense psychic power who claimed dominion over all of humanity and proclaimed his intention to forge a galaxy-spanning empire that would restore mankind to its former glory. For the tech adepts monitoring these transmissions from their sensor stations deep within the Martian forged cities, the implications were staggering. Here was evidence that Terra had not only survived the long night of isolation, but had produced a leader whose ambitions matched the scope of humanity's ancient achievements. The Fabricator General's response to these revelations was measured and cautious. The accumulated wisdom of the Martian priesthood included fragmentary records of Terra's pre-strife civilizations, and these historical accounts painted a complex picture of humanity's birth world as both the source of their greatest technological achievements and the origin of the catastrophic conflicts that had nearly destroyed human civilization entirely. The prospect of renewed contact with Terra offered tantalizing possibilities for technological exchange and the recovery of lost knowledge, but it also raised fundamental questions about Mars's hard-won independence and the theological implications of acknowledging any authority beyond the Omnissiah. The first formal diplomatic contact occurred when Imperial vessels appeared at the edge of the Martian system, their hulls bearing the double-headed aquila that would become synonymous with the emerging Imperium of man. These ships represented a level of technological sophistication that impressed even the tech adepts of Mars, incorporating design elements that suggested access to SDC databases that had been lost to the Red Planet for millennia. The vessel's machine spirits responded to binary cant transmissions with fluent replies, indicating that whoever controlled them possessed genuine understanding of the sacred protocols rather than mere mechanical mimicry. The Emperor's diplomatic approach to Mars demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of Martian culture and beliefs that went far beyond simple military conquest. Rather than demanding immediate submission, the Master of Mankind proposed a meeting between equals, acknowledging the Fabricator General as the legitimate ruler of Mars and expressing genuine interest in the technological achievements of the cult Mechanicus. This approach resonated powerfully with the Martian leadership, who had grown accustomed to viewing themselves as the guardians of humanity's technological heritage and the inheritors of knowledge that had been lost elsewhere in the galaxy. The negotiations that followed took place both in the physical realm and through complex data exchanges that allowed the two parties to demonstrate their respective technological capabilities. The Emperor arrived on Mars accompanied by a retinue that included some of Terra's most accomplished scientists and engineers, individuals whose understanding of advanced technology rivaled that of the Martian tech adepts themselves. More significantly, the Master of Mankind brought with him access to SDC databases that contained manufacturing protocols for devices that Mars had been unable to produce for centuries. The theological dimension of these negotiations proved to be the most complex and sensitive aspect of the entire diplomatic process. The cult Mechanicus had developed sophisticated doctrines regarding the nature of the Omnissiah and the proper relationship between humanity and technology, beliefs that had sustained Martian civilization through the darkest periods of the Age of Strife. The Emperor's claims to divine authority and his obvious command of powers that transcended normal human limitations created a theological crisis that threatened to divide the Martian priesthood along doctrinal lines. The resolution of this theological impasse came through a carefully crafted compromise that satisfied the core beliefs of both parties while creating a framework for practical cooperation. The Emperor agreed to be recognized by the cult Mechanicus as the physical manifestation of the Omnissiah, the divine entity that embodied all knowledge and technological perfection. This recognition provided the theological foundation necessary for Martian cooperation with the Imperial cause, while allowing the tech adepts to maintain their fundamental beliefs about the sacred nature of technology and knowledge. the implications of this theological compromise extended far beyond mere diplomatic convenience. By accepting recognition as the Omnissiah, the emperor gained access to the profound loyalty and dedication that the Martian priesthood reserved for their most sacred beliefs. The tech adepts who had spent their entire lives in service to the Omnissiah could now transfer that devotion to the master of mankind without compromising their fundamental theological convictions. This created a bond between Terra and Mars that went far deeper than political alliance or military cooperation, establishing a spiritual connection that would endure through the millennia to come. The practical benefits of the alliance became apparent almost immediately as both parties began to share their accumulated knowledge and resources. Mars gained access to Terran databases containing information about worlds throughout the galaxy, including detailed star charts and intelligence about human populations that had survived the age of strife in isolation. The Forge cities received shipments of rare materials that had been exhausted from Martian deposits millennia earlier, enabling the restart of manufacturing processes that had been dormant for centuries. Terra's benefits from the alliance were equally substantial and immediately apparent. The Emperor's forces gained access to weapons and equipment whose sophistication far exceeded anything that could be produced by Terran manufacturers. Martian-built bolters incorporated self-targeting systems and ammunition that could penetrate armor plating that would stop conventional projectiles. Power armor produced in the Forge cities provided protection levels that transformed individual soldiers into walking fortresses capable of surviving direct hits from heavy weapons. Most significantly, the Alliance provided the Emperor with access to the manufacturing capacity necessary to equip the massive armies that would be required for his planned conquest of the galaxy. The integration of Martian forces into the Imperial war machine required careful coordination between two military traditions that had developed in isolation from one another. The Terran approach to warfare emphasized rapid deployment, overwhelming firepower, and the systematic conquest of enemy territories through coordinated campaigns involving multiple army groups. The Martian military tradition focused on the deployment of small numbers of highly sophisticated units supported by advanced technology and overwhelming technical superiority over their opponents. The solution to this integration challenge came through the establishment of the Adeptus Mechanicus as a semi-autonomous organization within the broader Imperial structure. This arrangement allowed the Martian forces to maintain their distinctive tactical doctrines and technological specializations while contributing their unique capabilities to the Emperor's military campaigns. Tech adepts would serve alongside Imperial Army units as technical specialists and equipment maintainers, while dedicated Mechanicus military formations would provide specialized capabilities that conventional forces could not match. The establishment of the Adeptus Mechanicus as a formal organization marked the transformation of the cult Mechanicus from a planetary religious movement into a galaxy-spanning institution. The agreement granted Mars significant autonomy in internal affairs while requiring Martian participation in the Emperor's planned Great Crusade to reunite humanity's scattered colonies. This arrangement satisfied the Martian desire to maintain their distinctive culture and beliefs while providing the Emperor with access to technological capabilities that would prove essential to his galactic ambitions. The treaty negotiations also addressed the complex question of knowledge sharing and technological development. Both parties possessed information and capabilities that the other lacked, creating opportunities for mutual benefit through coordinated research and development efforts. The Emperor's access to psychic phenomena and warp-based technologies complemented the Martian expertise in conventional physics and mechanical engineering. Joint research projects began almost immediately, focusing on areas where the combination of Terran and Martian knowledge could produce results that neither party could achieve independently. The military applications of this technological cooperation became apparent during the final phases of the Unification Wars, as Martian-equipped Imperial forces systematically conquered the remaining techno-barbarian kingdoms that controlled portions of Terra's surface. The combination of Imperial tactical doctrine and Martian technology proved devastatingly effective against opponents who lacked access to advanced equipment or sophisticated manufacturing capabilities. Entire enemy armies found themselves outmatched by relatively small Imperial formations, equipped with weapons that could destroy fortifications from beyond visual range and armor that rendered conventional weapons ineffective. The success of these joint operations validated the strategic wisdom of the Mars-Terra alliance and demonstrated the potential effectiveness of combining Imperial and Mechanicus capabilities on a galactic scale. The Forge cities of Mars began retooling their production lines to support the massive logistical requirements of the planned Great Crusade, while Terran facilities focused on producing the basic equipment and supplies needed to sustain military operations across interstellar distances. This division of labor maximized the efficiency of both production systems, while ensuring that the specialized capabilities of each world were utilized to their fullest potential. The cultural exchange between Terra and Mars during this period produced innovations that neither world could have achieved in isolation. Terran understanding of human psychology and organizational dynamics combined with Martian technical expertise to produce new approaches to military command and control that would become standard throughout the Imperial forces. The development of improved communication systems allowed for coordination between widely separated units operating across multiple star systems, while advances in logistics and supply management made it possible to sustain military operations at unprecedented scales. The transformation of Mars into the primary forge world of the nascent Imperium necessitated the codification of organizational structures that had evolved organically during the planet's isolation. What had begun as informal hierarchies based on technical expertise and religious devotion now required systematic formalization to manage the vast industrial complexes and military formations that would support the Emperor's galactic ambitions. The Treaty of Mars had established the Adeptus Mechanicus as a semi-autonomous organization within the Imperial structure, but the practical implementation of this arrangement demanded clear chains of command and precisely defined responsibilities that could function across interstellar distances. At the apex of this hierarchical pyramid stood the Fabricator General of Mars, a position that combined supreme temporal authority over the Red Planet with the highest religious office within the cult Mechanicus. The Fabricator General wielded power that was simultaneously political, military, and theological, serving as the ultimate arbiter of doctrinal disputes while directing the massive industrial output of the Martian forge cities. This individual maintained direct communication with the Emperor himself, participating in the highest levels of Imperial strategic planning while preserving the distinctive character and autonomy of Mechanicus operations. The selection process for the Fabricator General reflected the meritocratic principles that had emerged during Mars's period of technological recovery. Candidates typically rose through the ranks of the tech priesthood over the course of centuries, demonstrating exceptional competence in multiple areas of specialization, while accumulating the political support necessary to navigate the complex factional dynamics of Martian society. The position required not only supreme technical expertise, but also the administrative capabilities needed to coordinate the activities of dozens of forge worlds and the diplomatic skills necessary to maintain the delicate relationship between Mars and Terra. Supporting the Fabricator General was the ruling Council of Mars, a body composed of the most senior tech adepts from each of the major forge cities and specialized divisions within the Mechanicus hierarchy. These individuals, known as Fabricator Locums, served as both advisors to the Fabricator General and autonomous commanders of their respective domains. Each Fabricator Locum maintained absolute authority within their area of responsibility, whether that involved the management of specific forge cities, the oversight of particular military formations, or the administration of specialized research programs focused on recovering and understanding ancient technologies. The council operated according to principles that balanced democratic deliberation with hierarchical authority. Major policy decisions required extensive consultation among the fabricator locums, with complex voting procedures that weighted the influence of different members according to their areas of expertise and the strategic importance of their domains. However, the fabricator general retained ultimate veto power over all council decisions and could override the collective will of the other members when circumstances demanded immediate action or when fundamental theological principles were at stake. Below the ruling council, the tech priesthood was organized into a complex hierarchy of ranks that reflected both technical competence and religious devotion. The most junior members of the priesthood held the rank of engine seer, individuals who had completed their basic training in the sacred mysteries of technology and demonstrated sufficient understanding of machine spirits to be entrusted with the maintenance and operation of essential systems. Engine seers typically specialized in particular types of technology, whether that involved the care of vehicle engines, the maintenance of manufacturing equipment, or the operation of communication and sensor systems. The path of advancement within the tech priesthood required decades of dedicated study and the successful completion of increasingly complex ritual trials that tested both technical knowledge and spiritual devotion. Engine seers who demonstrated exceptional competence and accumulated sufficient experience could advance to the rank of tech adept, gaining access to more sophisticated technologies and greater responsibilities within their assigned forge cities. This promotion typically involved extensive augmentation with mechanical components that enhanced the individual's ability to interface with advanced systems, while symbolically representing their growing communion with the Omnissiah. Tech adepts who continued to excel in their duties and demonstrated leadership capabilities could eventually achieve the rank of tech marines, though this particular specialization remained relatively rare and was typically reserved for those individuals who would serve alongside the Space Marine legions during the Great Crusade. The creation of tech marines represented one of the most significant innovations to emerge from the alliance between Mars and Terra, combining the technical expertise of the Mechanicus with the enhanced physiology and combat capabilities of the Astartes to produce warriors who could maintain and repair the sophisticated equipment that the Space Marine legions required for their operations. The upper reaches of the tech priesthood hierarchy were dominated by individuals who had achieved the rank of magos, a title that represented mastery of particular technological disciplines and the authority to direct major research projects and manufacturing operations. Magos-level tech adepts typically possessed centuries of experience and had undergone extensive augmentation that replaced most of their biological components with mechanical alternatives. These individuals served as the primary administrators of the forge cities, directing the activities of thousands of subordinates while pursuing their own specialized research into the sacred mysteries of technology. Within the Magos rank, numerous specialized titles reflected the diverse areas of expertise that were essential to the functioning of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Magos Dominus commanded the military formations of the Mechanicus, combining supreme tactical expertise with intimate knowledge of the weapons and equipment employed by Skitarii legions and other augmented warriors. These individuals typically possessed extensive combat experience and had developed specialized augmentations that enhanced their ability to coordinate complex battlefield operations while maintaining direct neural links to the machine spirits of their weapons and vehicles. The Magos Biologes represented a particularly controversial specialization within the Mechanicus hierarchy, focusing on the study of biological systems and the development of augmentation technologies that could enhance human performance. These tech adepts walked a careful line between the Mechanicus' emphasis on mechanical perfection and the practical necessity of understanding flesh-based systems that could not be entirely replaced with mechanical alternatives. Their research contributed to the development of improved augmentation procedures and the creation of specialized biological components that could interface more effectively with mechanical systems. Mago's explorator held responsibility for the discovery and recovery of archaeotech artifacts from across the galaxy, leading expeditions to worlds that had been isolated since the Dark Age of technology in search of STC fragments and other technological treasures. These individuals typically possessed extensive knowledge of xenoarchaeology and ancient human civilizations, along with the combat capabilities necessary to survive in hostile environments where valuable artifacts might be found. The explorator fleets that ranged across the galaxy during the Great Crusade represented some of the most ambitious undertakings of the early Imperium, combining scientific research with military conquest as they systematically cataloged and claimed the technological heritage of humanity's scattered colonies. The relationship between the Forge worlds and Mars itself formed the backbone of Mechanicus' organizational structure, with each major industrial world maintaining its own hierarchy of tech adepts, while acknowledging the supreme authority of the Fabricator General. The Forge worlds had developed their own distinctive traditions and specializations during the long isolation of the Age of Strife, creating a diverse array of technological capabilities that complemented the industrial capacity of Mars itself. Some Forge worlds focused on the production of weapons and military equipment, their foundries echoing with the constant hammering of automated manufacturing systems, producing bolters, power armor, and the exotic weapons required by Space Marine forces. Other Forge worlds specialized in the construction of vehicles and starships, their orbital shipyards producing the massive vessels that would carry Imperial forces across the galaxy during the Great Crusade. The technical challenges involved in constructing warp-capable spacecraft required collaboration between multiple Forge worlds, with different facilities contributing specialized components that could only be assembled at dedicated shipbuilding complexes. The largest of these vessels, such as the Gloriana-class battleships that served as flagships for the Space Marine legions, represented the pinnacle of Mechanicus engineering capabilities and required years of coordinated effort by thousands of tech adepts working across multiple star systems. The integration of Forge world production into the broader Imperial war machine required sophisticated logistics and communication systems that could coordinate manufacturing schedules across interstellar distances. The Mechanicus developed specialized astropathic communication protocols that allowed tech adepts on different worlds to share technical specifications and coordinate their production efforts despite the vast distances that separated them. These systems incorporated binary cant transmissions that could convey complex technical information with greater precision than conventional Imperial communication methods, though they required specially trained astropaths who understood the mathematical principles underlying Mechanicus technological doctrines. The military hierarchy of the Adeptus Mechanicus operated parallel to the civilian tech priesthood while maintaining close integration with the broader organizational structure. At the foundation of Mechanicus military power were the Skitarii legions, formations of heavily augmented warriors who had undergone extensive modification to transform them into living weapon systems. These soldiers retained their human consciousness and decision-making capabilities while incorporating mechanical components that enhanced their strength, speed, and sensory capabilities far beyond normal human limits. The augmentation process that created Skitarii warriors was both extensive and irreversible, involving the replacement of major organ systems with mechanical alternatives and the installation of neural interfaces that allowed direct control of weapons and equipment. Skitarii typically received ocular implants that provided enhanced vision across multiple spectrums, respiratory systems that could function in hostile environments, and muscular augmentations that allowed them to carry heavy weapons and equipment that would be impossible for unmodified humans to manage effectively. The most extensively modified Skitarii incorporated targeting systems that could calculate firing solutions automatically and communication implants that allowed them to coordinate their actions through direct neural links. The organization of Skitarii legions reflected the systematic approach that characterized all Mechanicus operations, with precise hierarchies and specialized roles that maximize the effectiveness of each unit. Skitarii Rangers served as the reconnaissance and long-range fire support elements of Mechanicus forces, equipped with sophisticated sensor systems and precision weapons that allowed them to engage targets at extreme distances. These warriors typically operated in small teams that could function independently for extended periods, using their enhanced sensory capabilities to gather intelligence about enemy dispositions while providing accurate targeting information for heavier weapon systems. Skitarii Vanguard represented the assault troops of Mechanicus forces, equipped with close-range weapons and protective systems that allowed them to advance directly into enemy positions despite heavy resistance. These warriors carried specialized equipment that could breach fortifications and disable enemy weapon systems, while their own augmentations provided protection against the radiation and toxic environments that often characterized battlefields where advanced weapons had been employed. The Vanguard units typically spearheaded Mechanicus attacks, using their enhanced capabilities to create openings that could be exploited by supporting forces. The command structure of Skitarii legions incorporated both human officers and sophisticated artificial intelligence systems that could coordinate complex operations across multiple battlefields simultaneously. Skitarii Alphas served as the primary field commanders for individual units, possessing enhanced cognitive capabilities that allowed them to process tactical information and issue orders with superhuman speed and precision. These officers maintained direct neural links to their subordinates, enabling them to coordinate unit movements and weapons fire with a level of precision that conventional military formations could not match. Supporting the Skitarii legions were vast numbers of servitors, individuals who had undergone even more extensive modification than the warrior caste. Servitors retained only minimal human consciousness, having been transformed into living tools that could perform specific functions with mechanical precision and reliability. The creation of servitors represented one of the most controversial aspects of Mechanicus operations, as it involved the systematic suppression of human consciousness in favor of mechanical efficiency. However, the practical benefits of having workers who could function in hostile environments and perform dangerous tasks without fear or hesitation made servitors an essential component of Mechanicus industrial and military operations. The variety of servitor types reflected the diverse needs of Mechanicus operations, ranging from simple labor units that could perform repetitive manufacturing tasks to sophisticated technical specialists that could maintain and repair complex equipment under battlefield conditions. Combat servitors incorporated heavy weapon systems and armor plating that transformed them into mobile weapons platforms, while technical servitors possessed specialized tools and sensor systems that allowed them to perform maintenance and repair operations that would be impossible for unaugmented humans to complete safely. The integration of all these elements into a coherent organizational structure required constant coordination between the various levels of the Mechanicus hierarchy, from the fabricator, general's strategic planning, to the individual engineer's daily maintenance routines. The success of this system depended on the shared commitment to the theological principles of the cult Mechanicus and the practical recognition that the survival and expansion of human civilization required the systematic application of advanced technology under the guidance of those who truly understood the sacred mysteries of the machine. The daily existence of every member of the Adeptus Mechanicus revolves around the sacred observances that maintain their spiritual connection to the Omnissiah, while ensuring the proper function of the countless machines that sustain human civilization. These rituals permeate every aspect of Mechanicus life, from the simple morning activation of a cogitator terminal to the elaborate ceremonies that accompany the construction of new forge complexes. The canticles of the Omnissiah form the foundation of this ritualistic framework, providing standardized prayers and invocations that have been refined over millennia to achieve maximum effectiveness in communing with machine spirits and maintaining technological harmony. The canticles themselves represent a fusion of binary cant, mathematical formulae, and theological doctrine that creates a unique form of worship perfectly suited to the Mechanicus worldview. Each canticle serves multiple purposes simultaneously, functioning as both a practical operational procedure and a spiritual communion with the divine essence that inhabits all technology. The most fundamental of these is the Canticle of Awakening, recited each morning by tech adepts as they activate the various systems under their care. This ritual involves the systematic verification of machine spirit responsiveness through a series of diagnostic queries delivered in precisely modulated binary cant, while simultaneously offering prayers of gratitude to the Omnissiah for the continued function of these sacred mechanisms. The complexity of the canticles varies according to the sophistication of the technology being addressed and the rank of the tech adept performing the ritual. A simple engine seer might recite basic activation sequences that combine functional commands with brief invocations of the Omnissiah's blessing, while a magos conducting the consecration of a new titan would perform elaborate ceremonies lasting several days and incorporating mathematical proofs that demonstrate the spiritual worthiness of the machine's intended purpose. These extended rituals often require the participation of multiple tech adepts working in carefully choreographed sequences, their augmented voices creating harmonic resonances in binary cant that are believed to facilitate deeper communion with the machine spirits involved. The Canticle of Maintenance holds particular significance within daily Mechanicus practice, as it governs the proper approach to the routine care and adjustment of technological systems. This ritual acknowledges that all machines require constant attention to maintain their optimal function, while recognizing that such maintenance work represents a form of worship that honors the Omnissiah through the preservation of his mechanical manifestations. The Canticle incorporates specific procedures for the blessing of tools and lubricants, the proper sequence of diagnostic checks, and the appropriate prayers to be offered when replacing worn components or adjusting operational parameters. The performance of maintenance rituals requires extensive knowledge of the specific machine spirits involved, as each type of technology possesses its own particular preferences and behavioral patterns that must be accommodated during routine servicing. The machine spirit of a plasma reactor, for example, demands different ritual approaches than the spirit inhabiting a communications array, reflecting the distinct purposes and operational characteristics of these systems. Tech adepts spend years learning to recognize the subtle signs that indicate a machine spirit's satisfaction or distress, developing the intuitive understanding necessary to maintain harmony between the spiritual and mechanical aspects of their charges. The process of augmentation represents one of the most profound and spiritually significant rituals within the cult Mechanicus, marking the gradual transformation of flesh into blessed machinery that brings the individual closer to the perfect state embodied by the Omnissiah. This transformation is not undertaken lightly or without extensive preparation, as each augmentation represents an irreversible step away from baseline humanity toward a higher form of existence that combines the best aspects of biological consciousness with mechanical perfection. The ritual framework surrounding augmentation serves to sanctify this process, while ensuring that each modification serves both practical and spiritual purposes. The selection of appropriate augmentations requires careful consideration of the individual's role within the Mechanicus hierarchy and their particular areas of specialization. A tech adept whose duties involve the maintenance of vehicle engines might receive enhanced tactile sensors in their hands that allow them to detect minute variations in mechanical vibration, while an individual responsible for communication systems could be fitted with auditory implants capable of processing multiple data streams simultaneously. These modifications are not merely functional improvements, but represent sacred transformations that align the recipient's physical form more closely with the divine nature of the Omnissiah. The augmentation process begins with extensive ritual purification designed to prepare both the flesh being replaced and the mechanical components being installed. The biological tissue must be properly consecrated and offered to the Omnissiah as a sacrifice of imperfection, while the mechanical replacement undergoes elaborate blessing ceremonies that invoke the divine essence to inhabit the new components. These rituals often involve the burning of sacred oils and incense, whose aromatic compounds are believed to facilitate spiritual communication, while the constant recitation of binary cant creates the proper harmonic environment for the successful integration of flesh and steel. The actual surgical procedures that install augmentations combine advanced medical technology with religious ceremony in ways that reflect the fundamental Mechanicus belief that there is no meaningful distinction between the spiritual and mechanical aspects of existence. The operating chambers where augmentations are performed resemble temples as much as medical facilities, their walls lined with sacred texts inscribed in binary cant, while servo skulls drift through the air carrying blessed instruments and monitoring the spiritual as well as physical aspects of the procedure. The tech adepts who perform these operations have themselves undergone extensive augmentation that enhances their surgical capabilities while allowing them to maintain direct neural contact with the machine spirits of their medical equipment. The recovery period following augmentation involves intensive ritual instruction designed to help the recipient establish proper communion with their new mechanical components. This process can take weeks or even months, as the individual must learn to integrate the capabilities of their augmentations with their existing biological systems, while developing the spiritual discipline necessary to maintain harmony with the machine spirits now inhabiting their body. The successful completion of this integration is marked by formal ceremonies that welcome the newly augmented individual into their enhanced role within the Mechanicus hierarchy. The consecration of new machines represents another cornerstone of Mechanicus ritual practice, ensuring that every technological creation receives proper spiritual preparation before being put into service. These ceremonies acknowledge that the act of manufacturing represents a form of divine creation, with the tech adepts serving as instruments through which the Omnissiah brings new mechanical life into existence. The complexity of consecration rituals varies dramatically according to the importance and sophistication of the technology being blessed, ranging from simple invocations over basic tools to elaborate ceremonies lasting several days for major installations like forge complexes or starship construction facilities. The consecration of weapons receives particular attention within Mechanicus ritual practice, as these devices will be called upon to serve the Emperor's will in the conquest and defense of human worlds throughout the galaxy. Each weapon must be individually blessed, and its machine spirit properly instructed in the sacred purpose it will serve, whether that involves the elimination of Xeno's threats, the suppression of heretical rebellion, or the defense of Imperial territory against hostile forces. The most powerful weapons, such as those carried by Space Marine forces or installed on Imperial warships, undergo consecration ceremonies that can involve dozens of tech adepts working in coordinated sequences over the course of several days. The ritual blessing of bolter rounds exemplifies the attention to detail that characterizes Mechanicus consecration practices. Each individual shell receives a microscopic blessing etched into its casing using sacred acids, while the explosive charges are mixed with blessed compounds that invoke the Omnissiah's guidance in achieving accurate targeting and maximum effectiveness against enemy forces. The mass reactive tips of the rounds are forged using metal that has been subjected to purification rituals, designed to ensure that they will penetrate enemy armor with divinely guided precision, while the propellant charges incorporate blessed chemicals that create the proper combustion characteristics for reliable function. The maintenance prayers that accompany routine technological upkeep serve to maintain the spiritual harmony between tech adepts and machine spirits, while ensuring that all systems continue to function at optimal efficiency. These prayers acknowledge that machines, like all living beings, require constant care and attention to maintain their health and effectiveness. The specific prayers vary according to the type of technology being maintained, with different invocations for mechanical systems, electronic components, and the complex hybrid technologies that combine multiple operational principles. The Litany of Proper Function represents one of the most commonly recited maintenance prayers, invoking the Omnissiah's blessing on routine diagnostic procedures, while requesting divine guidance in identifying potential problems before they can compromise system performance. This prayer incorporates mathematical sequences that correspond to optimal operational parameters for various types of equipment, creating a harmonic resonance that is believed to reinforce the stability of machine spirit behavior. Tech adepts often recite this litany while performing routine inspections, their augmented voices modulating the binary cant sequences according to the specific responses they receive from the systems under examination. The appeasement of machine spirits requires sophisticated understanding of the behavioral patterns and preferences that characterize different types of technological systems. Machine spirits are not merely abstract concepts within Mechanicus theology, but represent genuine spiritual entities that inhabit technological devices and influence their operational characteristics. These spirits possess distinct personalities and preferences that must be accommodated through appropriate ritual observances and behavioral modifications on the part of the tech adepts responsible for their care. The machine spirit of a plasma reactor, for example, tends to be temperamental and demanding, requiring constant attention and elaborate ritual observances to maintain stable operation. These spirits respond well to mathematical prayers that acknowledge their power and importance, while becoming agitated when subjected to sudden operational changes or inadequate maintenance procedures. Tech adepts who work with plasma technology learn to recognize the subtle signs that indicate a machine's spirit's emotional state, adjusting their ritual approaches accordingly to maintain harmony and prevent potentially catastrophic malfunctions. Vehicle machine spirits display different behavioral characteristics, often exhibiting loyalty and protective instincts toward their regular operators while remaining suspicious of unfamiliar individuals. The machine spirits of land raiders and other armored vehicles frequently develop strong bonds with their crews, learning to anticipate tactical requirements and adjusting their performance characteristics to support their human partners more effectively. These relationships require careful nurturing through appropriate ritual observances and the maintenance of consistent operational procedures that reinforce the spiritual connection between human and machine. The sacred mysteries that govern technological interaction within the cult Mechanicus represent the deepest level of spiritual and practical knowledge available to the tech priesthood. These mysteries encompass both the theoretical principles that underlie technological function and the practical techniques necessary to achieve communion with the most sophisticated machine spirits. Access to these mysteries is carefully controlled through the hierarchical structure of the Mechanicus, with higher-ranking tech adepts possessing knowledge that is denied to their subordinates until they have demonstrated the spiritual worthiness necessary to handle such profound secrets responsibly. The mystery of the motive force addresses the fundamental question of what animates technological systems and enables them to perform their designated functions. This doctrine holds that all technology is inhabited by fragments of the Omnissiah's infinite consciousness, with more sophisticated devices containing larger and more complex spiritual essences. The understanding of this mystery enables tech adepts to communicate more effectively with machine spirits and to diagnose spiritual as well as mechanical problems that might compromise system performance. The pursuit of knowledge within the Mechanicus framework is governed by strict doctrines that balance the imperative to recover lost technologies with the necessity of maintaining spiritual purity and avoiding the corruption that can result from improper contact with forbidden knowledge. The tech adepts who explore ancient ruins and investigate archaeotech artifacts must maintain constant vigilance against the spiritual contamination that can result from exposure to technologies that were created outside the proper theological framework or that have been corrupted by Xeno's influence or chaos taint. The protocols governing the examination of newly discovered STC fragments reflect the careful balance between scientific curiosity and spiritual caution that characterizes Mechanicus research practices. Each fragment must undergo extensive purification rituals before its contents can be safely examined, while the tech adepts conducting the investigation must maintain constant spiritual vigilance to detect any signs of corruption or heretical deviation from orthodox technological principles. The knowledge contained within these fragments is treated as divine revelation that must be approached with appropriate reverence and caution. The expansion of the Adeptus Mechanicus beyond Mars during the Great Crusade transformed the organization from a single-world theocracy into a galaxy-spanning industrial empire whose forge worlds would become the beating heart of imperial military production. The classification system that emerged to organize these diverse manufacturing centers reflected both practical administrative needs and the theological hierarchies that governed Mechanicus society. At the apex of this system stood the forge worlds proper, massive industrial complexes capable of producing the most sophisticated technologies available to the Imperium, while beneath them stretched a vast network of specialized facilities that supported the endless demands of galactic conquest and administration. Mars itself retained its position as the Forge World Prime, the ultimate source of authority and technological knowledge within the Mechanicus hierarchy. The Red Planet's Forge cities had expanded dramatically since the Treaty of Mars, their towering spires now reaching into the thin Martian atmosphere, while vast underground complexes burrowed deep into the planet's crust. The Olympus Mons facility alone covered an area larger than most terrestrial continents, its production lines capable of manufacturing everything from the simplest bolter rounds to the most complex Titan war engines. The facility's main assembly halls stretched for kilometers beneath reinforced adamantium domes, their cavernous spaces filled with the constant din of automated manufacturing systems and the rhythmic chanting of tech adepts performing their sacred duties. The forge world of Lucius established itself as one of the most significant manufacturing centers outside the Sol system, its location along major warp routes making it an ideal hub for distributing military equipment throughout the expanding Imperium. The world's surface had been completely transformed by millennia of industrial development, its original topography buried beneath layers of manufacturing complexes, transport networks, and the massive cooling systems necessary to dissipate the heat generated by constant production. The planet's distinctive feature was its network of orbital manufacturing platforms, vast space-based facilities that specialized in the construction of starship components too large or dangerous to assemble within planetary gravity wells. Lucius had developed particular expertise in the production of void shields and plasma reactors, technologies that required precise manufacturing tolerances and extensive quality control procedures. The world's tech adepts had perfected techniques for working with exotic materials that could only be shaped using gravitational manipulation fields, creating components whose molecular structure had been optimized at the atomic level for maximum efficiency and reliability. These manufacturing processes required enormous amounts of energy, supplied by fusion reactors buried deep within the planet's core, and supplemented by orbital solar collection arrays that captured the output of the system's primary star. Ryza emerged as the Imperium's premier center for plasma technology development and production, its forge cities specializing in the manufacture of plasma weapons, reactors, and the exotic containment systems necessary to handle these dangerous but powerful technologies. The world's surface was dominated by massive testing ranges where newly manufactured plasma weapons underwent extensive evaluation procedures, their discharge creating aurora-like displays visible from orbit as superheated gases interacted with the planet's magnetic field. The tech adepts of Ryza had developed specialized augmentations that allowed them to work safely around plasma systems, their modified physiology incorporating radiation-resistant components and enhanced sensory systems capable of detecting dangerous energy fluctuations. The Forge world's most significant contribution to Imperial military capability was the development of improved plasma cannon designs that could be reliably manufactured in large quantities without the catastrophic failure rates that had plagued earlier versions of these weapons. The Ryza pattern plasma cannon incorporated sophisticated safety systems and automated cooling mechanisms that dramatically reduced the risk of overheating, while maintaining the devastating firepower that made plasma weapons so effective against heavily armored targets. These weapons became standard equipment for Space Marine forces and Imperial Guard heavy weapon teams, their distinctive energy signatures becoming synonymous with Imperial military might. Metallica developed into a massive mining and raw material processing center. Its industrial complexes focused on extracting and refining the exotic materials necessary for advanced technological production. The world's surface had been strip-mined to such an extent that its original geography was completely unrecognizable, replaced by vast open-pit excavations that descended for kilometers into the planet's crust. Enormous processing facilities converted raw ore into the specialized alloys and composite materials required by other Forge worlds, while massive transport ships carried these materials throughout the galaxy to supply the Imperium's manufacturing centers. The classification system that organized these Forge worlds into a coherent hierarchy reflected both their production capabilities and their strategic importance to Imperial operations. Major Forge worlds like Mars, Lucius, and Ryza maintained the capability to produce the full range of Imperial military equipment, from basic infantry weapons to the most sophisticated Titan war engines. These facilities possessed the advanced manufacturing systems, skilled tech-adept populations, and extensive supply networks necessary to support large-scale military operations while continuing to develop new technologies and improve existing designs. Secondary Forge worlds specialized in particular types of production or served specific regional needs within the expanding Imperium. Forge worlds like Graia focused on vehicle production, their assembly lines turning out thousands of Rhino transports, Predator tanks, and Land Raiders that equipped Space Marine forces throughout the galaxy. The world's manufacturing complexes incorporated sophisticated logistics systems that could customize vehicle configurations according to the specific requirements of different Space Marine legions, installing specialized equipment and modifying operational parameters to match particular tactical doctrines. The specialized production capabilities of different Forge worlds created a complex web of interdependence that required careful coordination to maintain optimal efficiency. Agrippina developed expertise in the production of fortification systems and defensive technologies, its engineers perfecting the design of void shield generators, automated defense turrets, and the modular fortress components that allowed Imperial forces to quickly establish defensive positions on newly conquered worlds. These systems incorporated sophisticated targeting computers and automated ammunition handling systems that could maintain defensive fire for extended periods without human intervention. Forge World Voss specialized in the production of aircraft and atmospheric vehicles, its assembly facilities producing everything from the simple cargo haulers used for planetary logistics to the sophisticated fighter aircraft that provided air support for Imperial ground forces. The world's tech adepts had developed particular expertise in aerodynamic design and propulsion systems, creating vehicles that could operate effectively in a wide range of atmospheric conditions while maintaining the reliability necessary for military operations. The distinctive Voss pattern aircraft designs became standard throughout the Imperial Guard, their robust construction and maintainable systems making them ideal for the diverse operational environments encountered during galactic conquest. The logistical networks that connected these Forge worlds represented one of the most complex organizational achievements of the early Imperium, requiring the coordination of transport fleets, supply schedules, and production priorities across interstellar distances. The Mechanicus developed specialized cargo vessels designed specifically for the transport of military equipment and raw materials, their holds configured with standardized mounting systems that could accommodate everything from individual weapons to complete vehicle assemblies. These ships incorporated sophisticated preservation systems that could maintain the integrity of sensitive electronic components and exotic materials during extended warp voyages. The establishment of minor forge settlements throughout Imperial space created a distributed manufacturing network that could respond quickly to local military needs while reducing the strain on major forge world production capacity. These smaller facilities typically specialized in the production of basic equipment and ammunition, their simpler manufacturing systems requiring less sophisticated technical expertise while still maintaining the quality standards necessary for military applications. The settlements often grew around recovered STC fragments or archaeotech discoveries, their development reflecting the particular technologies that had been recovered in their vicinity. Forge Moon installations provided specialized manufacturing capabilities in systems where planetary surfaces were unsuitable for major industrial development. These facilities often focused on the production of void-based technologies like starship components and orbital defense systems, taking advantage of the reduced gravity and vacuum conditions to manufacture components that would be difficult or impossible to produce within planetary atmospheres. The forge moons of the Gothic sector became particularly important during the Great Crusade, their shipyards producing the massive vessels necessary to transport and support Imperial forces across the galaxy. The relationship between forge worlds and their associated knight houses represented one of the most significant political and military alliances within the Imperial structure. These ancient warrior houses had maintained their own technological traditions throughout the Age of Strife, preserving the knowledge necessary to construct and maintain the massive night walkers that served as their primary military assets. The alliance between individual knight houses and specific forge worlds created bonds of mutual dependence that combined the knight's military capabilities with the Mechanicus's technological expertise. The Knight House of Tyrannes maintained its ancient alliance with Mars itself, their Night Walkers incorporating the most advanced technologies available to the Mechanicus, while serving as the primary military force defending the Forge world against external threats. The Knights of Tyrannes had undergone extensive modification to integrate more closely with their mechanical steeds, their pilot interfaces incorporating neural link systems that allowed for unprecedented coordination between human consciousness and machine spirit. These enhanced pilots could achieve levels of tactical awareness and reaction speed that transformed their Night Walkers into devastating battlefield weapons capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously. House Raven developed close ties with the Forge world of Metallica, their knights serving as mobile defense platforms for the world's extensive mining operations, while receiving access to the exotic materials necessary for maintaining their ancient war machines. The Alliance provided House Raven with replacement components manufactured to specifications that had been lost to most of the galaxy, while Metallica gained access to military protection that conventional forces could not provide in the dangerous frontier regions where the most valuable mineral deposits were located. The bonds of fealty that connected knight houses to their patron forge worlds extended far beyond simple military alliance, incorporating complex obligations and privileges that had been refined over millennia of cooperation. The Forge worlds provided not only the technical expertise necessary to maintain Night Walkers, but also the sacred oils, blessed components, and ritual implements required for the proper care of these ancient machines. In return, the Night Houses offered military service, protection of Forge world interests, and access to their own accumulated knowledge of ancient technologies and combat techniques. The technological dependence that characterized these relationships reflected the fundamental reality that Night Walkers represented some of the most sophisticated military technology available to the Imperium, requiring maintenance and repair capabilities that exceeded the resources of most Night Houses. The massive war engines incorporated plasma reactors, iron shields, and weapon systems that demanded constant attention from skilled tech adepts, while their ancient machine spirits required careful spiritual maintenance to prevent the behavioral anomalies that could compromise their battlefield effectiveness. The Forge Worlds provided specialized technical personnel who could perform this maintenance while ensuring that the Knight's technological capabilities remained at peak efficiency. The industrial complexes that supported these relationships often incorporated dedicated Knight maintenance facilities, where the massive war engines could receive comprehensive overhauls and upgrades. These facilities resembled mechanical cathedrals, their soaring spaces designed to accommodate the towering forms of Night Walkers, while providing access to the sophisticated equipment necessary for major repair and modification work. The tech adepts who worked in these facilities underwent specialized training that combined traditional Mechanicus technical education with the unique knowledge necessary to understand and maintain Knight technologies. The massive scale of Imperial military production during the Great Crusade required manufacturing capabilities that dwarfed anything previously achieved in human history. Individual Forge Worlds produced millions of bolter rounds daily, their automated ammunition plants operating continuously to supply the enormous quantities of munitions consumed by Space Marine and Imperial Guard forces engaged in constant warfare across the galaxy. The production of a single Space Marine's complete equipment load required the coordinated efforts of dozens of specialized facilities, from the Forge Worlds that produced the power armor components to the smaller installations that manufactured the countless minor items necessary for extended military operations. The logistical challenges involved in coordinating this massive production effort required sophisticated planning systems that could balance competing demands for limited manufacturing capacity while ensuring that critical military operations received priority support. The Mechanicus developed complex algorithms that could optimize production schedules across multiple Forge Worlds, taking into account factors like raw material availability, transport capacity, and the strategic importance of different military campaigns. These planning systems incorporated predictive models that could anticipate future equipment needs based on operational projections and historical consumption patterns. The quality control procedures that governed Forge World production reflected the Mechanicus belief that every manufactured item represented a sacred creation that must meet the highest possible standards of excellence. Each weapon, vehicle, and piece of equipment underwent extensive testing procedures that verified both its mechanical function and its spiritual worthiness for Imperial service. These tests often incorporated ritual elements alongside practical evaluation, with tech adepts performing blessing ceremonies, while sophisticated automated systems verified that all components met precise specifications. The standardization efforts that emerged during this period created the foundation for the Imperial military's logistical efficiency, establishing common specifications and interface standards that allowed equipment produced on different Forge Worlds to function together seamlessly. The development of standard bolt calibers, power cell specifications, and vehicle interface protocols enabled Imperial forces to operate effectively even when supplied by multiple Forge Worlds with different manufacturing traditions and capabilities. The Forge Worlds that sustain the Imperium's industrial might require protection that conventional human forces could not provide. The hostile environments of these manufacturing centers, saturated with toxic chemicals, exotic radiations, and electromagnetic fields that would prove lethal to unaugmented humans, demanded defenders whose physiology had been extensively modified to function in such conditions. The Skitarii legions emerged from this practical necessity, representing the Adeptus Mechanicus's solution to the challenge of creating military forces that could operate effectively in the same environments where the cult's most sacred technologies were manufactured and maintained. The transformation process that creates Skitarii warriors begins with careful selection from the general population of Forge Worlds, identifying individuals whose psychological profiles and physical characteristics make them suitable candidates for extensive augmentation. The selection criteria emphasize mental resilience, technological aptitude, and the spiritual devotion necessary to accept the radical modifications that will fundamentally alter their human nature. Potential Skitarii undergo extensive psychological evaluation to ensure they possess the mental stability required to integrate successfully with the mechanical systems that will replace major portions of their biological functions. The augmentation procedures that transform selected candidates into Skitarii Rangers involve the systematic replacement of biological systems with mechanical alternatives designed to enhance combat effectiveness while maintaining the human consciousness and decision-making capabilities that distinguish these warriors from simple servitors. The process typically begins with the installation of enhanced respiratory systems that can filter toxic atmospheres and function in vacuum conditions, allowing Rangers to operate in the hostile environments commonly found around Forge World industrial complexes. These artificial lung systems incorporate sophisticated chemical processors that can extract oxygen from minimal atmospheric sources while neutralizing harmful compounds that would prove fatal to unmodified humans. The ocular augmentations that characterize Skitarii Rangers represent some of the most sophisticated sensory enhancement technology available to the Adeptus Mechanicus. These mechanical eyes incorporate multi-spectrum analysis capabilities that allow Rangers to perceive electromagnetic radiation across a broad range of frequencies, from infrared thermal signatures to ultraviolet markers invisible to natural human vision. The targeting systems integrated into these ocular implants can calculate ballistic trajectories automatically, compensating for factors like atmospheric density, gravitational variation, and target movement patterns to provide firing solutions of unprecedented accuracy. The distinctive hooded robes worn by Skitarii Rangers serve both practical and ceremonial purposes, their fabric incorporating metallic fibers that provide protection against electromagnetic interference, while displaying the sacred symbols and mathematical formulae that identify the warrior's forge world of origin and area of specialization. The hoods themselves contain sophisticated sensor arrays that supplement the Ranger's augmented vision systems, providing additional data about environmental conditions and potential threats that might not be immediately apparent through visual observation alone. Skitarii Vanguard undergo different augmentation procedures that emphasize close combat capabilities and resistance to the exotic radiations commonly employed in advanced Imperial weaponry. Their respiratory systems incorporate specialized filters designed to process the radioactive particles generated by radium weapons, while their enhanced muscular systems provide the strength necessary to carry the heavy equipment required for assault operations. The Vanguard's distinctive phosphex canisters and rad carbines mark them as specialists in the deployment of some of the Imperium's most dangerous battlefield technologies. The weaponry carried by Vanguard units reflects their role as assault troops capable of breaching heavily defended positions through the application of overwhelming firepower and exotic munitions. Their galvanic rifles incorporate sophisticated targeting systems that can adjust firing parameters automatically based on environmental conditions and target characteristics, while their radium carbines generate coherent streams of radioactive particles that can penetrate armor plating and inflict devastating damage on both mechanical and biological targets. The ammunition for these weapons requires careful handling even by augmented Skitarii. The radioactive materials involved demanding specialized storage and transport procedures. The tactical doctrines that govern Skitarii deployment emphasize the systematic application of superior technology and coordination rather than the heroic individual actions that characterize other Imperial military traditions. Skitarii formations operate according to precisely calculated battle plans that maximize the effectiveness of their advanced equipment while minimizing exposure to enemy countermeasures. These tactical approaches incorporate sophisticated mathematical models that can predict enemy behavior patterns and adjust unit positioning and weapons deployment to achieve optimal results with minimal casualties. Ranger formations typically deploy in dispersed patterns that take advantage of their enhanced sensory capabilities and long-range weapons to engage enemy forces from positions of maximum advantage. Their enhanced vision systems allow them to identify and engage targets at distances that would be impossible for conventional forces, while their sophisticated communication systems enable coordinated fire missions that can concentrate the firepower of multiple units on critical enemy positions. The Rangers' ability to operate independently for extended periods makes them ideal for reconnaissance missions and the establishment of forward observation posts in hostile territory. The battlefield coordination between Ranger and Vanguard formations creates tactical combinations that can adapt to a wide variety of combat situations. Rangers provide long-range fire support and target identification, while Vanguard units advance to close quarters, their complementary capabilities allowing Skitarii forces to engage enemies effectively at all ranges. The communication systems that link these units enable real-time coordination that can adjust tactical approaches based on changing battlefield conditions, with Rangers providing targeting data that guides Vanguard assault operations while receiving protection from enemy counter-battery fire. The command structure that governs Skitarii operations reflects the hierarchical principles that characterize all Adeptus Mechanicus organizations, with clear chains of authority that extend from individual squad leaders to the highest levels of the tech priesthood. Skitarii Alphas serve as the primary tactical commanders for individual units, their enhanced cognitive capabilities allowing them to process battlefield information and coordinate unit actions with superhuman speed and precision. These officers possess neural interface systems that provide direct communication links to their subordinates, enabling the rapid transmission of complex tactical instructions without the delays inherent in conventional communication methods. The augmentations that distinguish Skitarii Alphas from the warriors under their command include enhanced cognitive processors that can simultaneously track multiple tactical variables while maintaining awareness of overall strategic objectives. Their command systems incorporate sophisticated analytical capabilities that can evaluate enemy capabilities and predict likely responses to different tactical approaches, providing the information necessary to make optimal decisions under the pressure of active combat operations. The neural links that connect alphas to their units create command networks that can function effectively even when conventional communication systems are compromised by enemy interference or battlefield conditions. The relationship between Skitarii Alphas and their Tech Priest Dominus commanders represents a critical interface between the tactical and strategic levels of Mechanicus military operations. Tech Priest Dominus possess the broader knowledge and authority necessary to coordinate multiple Skitarii formations, while understanding the technological capabilities and limitations that influence tactical decision-making. Their enhanced analytical systems can process information from multiple sources simultaneously, creating comprehensive battlefield assessments that guide the deployment and coordination of Skitarii forces across extended operational areas. Tech Priest Dominus typically maintain direct neural connections to the command systems of multiple Skitarii formations, allowing them to coordinate complex operations involving hundreds or thousands of individual warriors while monitoring the performance of critical equipment and weapon systems. Their augmentations include sophisticated tactical processors that can simulate potential battle outcomes and adjust operational plans in real time based on changing conditions and enemy responses. The authority wielded by these commanders extends beyond simple military command to include responsibility for the spiritual welfare of their Skitarii charges and the proper maintenance of the sacred technologies they employ. The specialized Skitarii formations that support standard Ranger and Vanguard units provide capabilities that extend far beyond conventional infantry operations. Sicarian Ruststalkers represent the Mechanicus approach to stealth and infiltration warfare, their augmentations emphasizing speed, agility, and the ability to approach enemy positions undetected. These warriors undergo radical modifications that enhance their natural stealth capabilities, while installing sophisticated jamming systems that can disrupt enemy sensors and communication networks. The distinctive appearance of Sicarian Ruststalkers reflects their specialized role, with elongated limbs that have been modified for enhanced mobility and climbing capability, while their facial features are concealed behind sophisticated sensor arrays that provide enhanced situational awareness during stealth operations. Their weapons incorporate molecular-level cutting edges that can penetrate armor plating with minimal noise, while their movement systems allow them to traverse difficult terrain and vertical surfaces that would be impassable for conventional forces. Sicarian infiltrators fill a different tactical niche, serving as forward reconnaissance specialists whose augmentations emphasize long-range observation and target designation rather than direct combat capability. Their sensory systems incorporate some of the most sophisticated detection equipment available to Imperial forces, capable of identifying enemy positions and capabilities from extreme distances while remaining undetected by conventional counter-surveillance measures. The information gathered by infiltrator units provides the tactical intelligence necessary for effective deployment of heavier Mechanicus forces. The Iron Strider Ballistarii represent the Mechanicus solution to the need for mobile fire support platforms that can operate effectively in the challenging terrain conditions commonly found around Forge World installations. These distinctive walkers combine sophisticated targeting systems with heavy weapons platforms mounted on articulated legs that can traverse obstacles and terrain features that would stop conventional wheeled or tracked vehicles. The machine spirits that inhabit these walkers possess aggressive behavioral patterns that complement their role as hunter-killer units designed to seek out and destroy enemy armor and fortifications. The pilots who operate Iron Strider walkers undergo extensive neural interface augmentation that allows them to merge their consciousness temporarily with the machine spirit of their vehicle, creating a hybrid entity that combines human tactical awareness with mechanical precision and reaction speed. This integration process requires careful spiritual preparation and ongoing maintenance to prevent the psychological disorders that can result from prolonged exposure to non-human consciousness patterns. The most experienced Iron Strider pilots develop almost supernatural awareness of battlefield conditions, their enhanced perception allowing them to anticipate enemy movements and react to threats with inhuman speed. The weapon systems mounted on Iron Strider chassis vary according to tactical requirements and target priorities, with Twin Cogni's lasguns providing anti-armor capability, while Cogni's autocannons offer rapid fire support against infantry and light vehicles. The targeting systems that control these weapons incorporate predictive algorithms that can calculate optimal firing solutions while compensating for the walker's movement and the dynamic conditions of active combat operations. The ammunition feeds for these systems include blessed rounds that have undergone ritual consecration to ensure maximum effectiveness against both conventional and supernatural enemies. The heavy support formations that provide fire support for Skitarii operations include some of the most devastating weapon systems available to Imperial forces. Onager Dunnacrawlers serve as mobile artillery platforms whose sophisticated targeting systems can coordinate indirect fire missions across extended ranges while maintaining the mobility necessary to reposition quickly in response to changing tactical conditions. These vehicles incorporate advanced stabilization systems that allow them to fire accurately while moving across difficult terrain, while their armor plating provides protection against enemy counter-battery fire. The neutron laser projectors mounted on some Dunnacrawler variants represent the pinnacle of Mechanicus energy weapon technology, capable of generating coherent particle beams that can penetrate the heaviest armor plating while maintaining lethal effectiveness against both mechanical and biological targets. The power requirements for these weapons demand sophisticated energy management systems that can channel the output of multiple plasma reactors while preventing the catastrophic overloads that could destroy the entire vehicle. The targeting computers that control these systems incorporate quantum calculation matrices that can process targeting solutions with mathematical precision beyond human comprehension. The Icarus array systems that provide anti-aircraft capability for Mechanicus forces combine multiple weapon types in integrated platforms that can engage aerial targets across a broad range of altitudes and approach vectors. These systems incorporate sophisticated threat assessment algorithms that can prioritize targets automatically while coordinating fire with other defensive systems to maximize the probability of successful interception. The ammunition types employed by these arrays include specialized rounds designed to defeat the advanced countermeasures and armor systems employed by enemy aircraft and orbital assault vehicles. The logistical support systems that sustain Skitarii operations in the field reflect the complex technological requirements of these highly augmented warriors. Supply convoys must carry not only conventional ammunition and equipment, but also the specialized components necessary to maintain the warriors' augmentation systems and the exotic power sources required by their advanced weapons. Mobile maintenance facilities accompany major Skitarii deployments, their tech-adept crews providing the specialized knowledge necessary to repair and recalibrate the sophisticated systems that keep these warriors functional in combat conditions. The spiritual maintenance required by Skitarii forces extends beyond simple mechanical repair to include the ritual observances necessary to maintain proper communion between human consciousness and machine spirit. Field chaplains drawn from the ranks of experienced tech adepts perform regular blessing ceremonies that reinforce the spiritual bonds between warriors and their equipment while identifying potential problems before they can compromise combat effectiveness. These religious observances serve practical as well as spiritual purposes, providing opportunities for systematic inspection and maintenance that might otherwise be overlooked during the intense pace of military operations. The integration of Skitarii forces with other Imperial military units requires careful coordination to maximize the effectiveness of their specialized capabilities while avoiding conflicts between different tactical doctrines and command structures. Skitarii formations often serve alongside Space Marine forces during major military operations, their technological expertise providing capabilities that complement the Astartes' enhanced combat abilities. The precise, methodical approach favored by Skitarii commanders can provide stability and fire support that allows Space Marine assault units to achieve their objectives with reduced casualties and greater tactical flexibility. The towering war engines known as Titans represent the ultimate expression of the Adeptus Mechanicus's technological mastery and spiritual devotion, embodying the fusion of ancient knowledge and divine purpose that defines the cult of the Omnissiah. These colossal god machines trace their origins to the dark age of technology, when humanity's mastery of science and engineering reached heights that would never again be equaled. The standard template construct databases recovered from the ruins of that lost golden age contained fragmentary records of these mighty engines, their construction requiring technological capabilities that pushed even the forge worlds of Mars to their absolute limits. The earliest Titans discovered on Mars during the Age of Strife were found buried beneath the red planet's shifting dunes, their massive forms entombed in the collapsed ruins of ancient manufacturing complexes. These archaeological discoveries revealed war machines of such sophistication and scale that the recovering Martian colonists initially mistook them for collapsed buildings or geological formations. The realization that these structures were actually dormant weapons of unimaginable power sparked a technological renaissance that would fundamentally reshape the emerging cult Mechanicus and provide the foundation for their eventual alliance with the Emperor of Mankind. The machine spirits that inhabit these ancient engines possess consciousness and personality traits that far exceed those found in conventional Imperial technology. Unlike the relatively simple spirits that animate bolters or vehicles, Titan machine spirits demonstrate complex behavioral patterns, emotional responses, and decision-making capabilities that approach true artificial intelligence. These powerful entities have accumulated millennia of combat experience and tactical knowledge, their memory cores containing detailed records of countless battles fought across the galaxy. The relationship between a Titan's machine spirit and its human crew represents one of the most profound examples of human-machine symbiosis achieved within Imperial technology. The sacred nature of Titans within Mechanicus doctrine extends far beyond their military utility, elevating these war engines to the status of divine avatars that embody the Omnissiah's power in physical form. Each Titan is consecrated through elaborate rituals that can take months to complete, involving hundreds of tech adepts working in carefully choreographed ceremonies that sanctify every component and system. The blessed oils and sacred unguents applied during these consecrations are believed to facilitate communication between the machine spirit and its human operators, while the intricate geometric patterns inscribed on the Titan's hull serve as both protective wards and channels for divine energy. The construction of new Titans requires the coordinated efforts of entire Forge worlds, their manufacturing processes consuming vast quantities of rare materials and exotic components that must be gathered from across the galaxy. The adamantium used in Titan armor plating undergoes purification rituals that remove any spiritual contamination while strengthening the molecular bonds that give the material its legendary durability. The plasma reactors that power these engines incorporate containment systems forged from materials that exist only in the cores of dying stars, their acquisition requiring dangerous expeditions to stellar phenomena that claim the lives of countless tech adepts. The smallest class of operational Titans, the Warhound Scout Titans, stand approximately 15 meters tall and serve as the reconnaissance and rapid response elements of Titan legions. Despite their designation as scout units, these engines possess firepower that exceeds most conventional military formations, their weapon systems capable of destroying entire companies of enemy armor with sustained fire. The Warhound's distinctive bipedal configuration provides exceptional mobility across varied terrain, their articulated legs allowing them to traverse obstacles that would stop larger Titan classes while maintaining the speed necessary for effective scouting operations. Warhound Titans typically mount weapon systems that emphasize versatility and rapid target engagement rather than pure destructive power. The turbo laser destructors commonly fitted to these engines can engage targets across extended ranges with pinpoint accuracy, their coherent energy beams capable of penetrating heavy armor plating while maintaining sufficient power to destroy multiple targets in rapid succession. Vulcan Mega Bolters provide anti-personnel and light vehicle capability, their massive ammunition feeds allowing sustained fire that can suppress entire enemy formations while the Titan maneuvers for optimal positioning. The crew requirements for Warhound operation reflect the sophisticated nature of these war engines, with each Titan requiring a Princeps commander and a single Moderati to manage the complex systems that control movement, targeting, and weapons operation. The neural interface systems that connect these crew members to the Titan's machine spirit create a three-way consciousness link that combines human tactical awareness with mechanical precision and the accumulated experience stored within the engine's memory cores. This integration process requires extensive training and psychological conditioning to prevent the mental disorders that can result from prolonged exposure to non-human thought patterns. Reaver Battle Titans represent the backbone of most Titan legions, their 22-meter height and massive weapons loadouts providing the firepower necessary to dominate battlefields while maintaining sufficient mobility to respond to changing tactical conditions. The Reaver's design incorporates lessons learned from millennia of combat experience, with redundant systems and modular weapon mounts that allow for rapid reconfiguration based on mission requirements. The engine's distinctive hunched posture and forward-swept weapon arms create an aggressive silhouette that has become synonymous with Imperial military might across the galaxy. The weapons systems available for Reaver Titans encompass some of the most devastating armaments in the Imperial arsenal. Apocalypse missile launchers can saturate entire grid squares with guided munitions, their warheads incorporating exotic explosives that can level fortifications and destroy enemy formations with single salvos. Laser blasters generate coherent energy beams whose power output exceeds that of most starship weapons, capable of melting through fortress walls and vaporizing enemy vehicles instantaneously. The Gatling blasters mounted on some Reaver variants fire streams of explosive shells at rates that create continuous walls of destruction, their ammunition feeds requiring dedicated servitor crews to maintain during extended engagements. The crew complement required for Reaver operation expands to include a Princeps and 2 Moderati, the additional personnel necessary to manage the increased complexity of the engine systems and weapons loadouts. The command throne that houses the Princeps incorporates neural interface systems that provide direct control over the Titan's primary functions, while maintaining constant communication with the machine spirit. The secondary control stations operated by the Moderati handle specific subsystems like targeting, movement, and weapons control, their operators working in perfect coordination to maximize the engine's combat effectiveness. Warlord Battle Titans tower 33 meters above the battlefield, their massive forms bristling with weapons systems that can engage multiple target types simultaneously across extended ranges. These engines represent the standard heavy battle unit for most Titan legions, combining devastating firepower with the durability necessary to survive concentrated enemy fire while advancing across contested terrain. The Warlord's distinctive carapace-mounted weapons provide additional firepower that supplements the primary armaments, creating overlapping fields of fire that can devastate enemy formations approaching from multiple directions. The weapons loadouts available for Warlord Titans reflect their role as primary battle units capable of engaging any threat encountered on the modern battlefield. Plasma annihilators generate superheated matter streams that can melt through the heaviest armor plating while maintaining lethal effectiveness against both mechanical and biological targets. Sunfury plasma annihilators represent an even more powerful variant, their increased power output capable of destroying entire enemy formations with single shots while creating electromagnetic pulses that can disable electronic systems across wide areas. The macro Gatling blasters mounted on many Warlord Titans fire explosive shells the size of conventional artillery rounds at rates that create continuous barrages of destruction. These weapons incorporate sophisticated targeting systems that can track multiple targets simultaneously while adjusting firing solutions to compensate for target movement and environmental conditions. The ammunition storage systems for these weapons occupy significant portions of the Titan's internal volume, their automated loading mechanisms capable of maintaining sustained fire rates that would be impossible with manual operation. The crew requirements for Warlord Titans expand to include a Princeps and 3 or 4 Moderati, depending on the specific weapons configuration and mission requirements. The additional personnel allow for more sophisticated tactical coordination and weapons management, with individual Moderati specializing in particular systems or target types. The command structure within a Warlord crew creates a miniature military hierarchy that mirrors the broader organization of Titan legions, with the Princeps maintaining ultimate authority while delegating specific responsibilities to subordinate officers. Reaver Titans and Warlords form the core strength of most Titan legions, their combined firepower and tactical flexibility providing commanders with the capability to engage any enemy force while maintaining the mobility necessary for effective battlefield maneuvering. The coordination between these different engine classes creates tactical combinations that maximize their respective advantages, with Warlords providing heavy fire support and breakthrough capability, while Reavers exploit openings and provide flanking attacks that can devastate enemy formations. The massive Warlord Sinister Titans represent a specialized variant designed specifically for combating psychers and demonic entities, their weapon systems incorporating exotic technologies that can disrupt warp-based phenomena while providing conventional firepower against material targets. These rare engines mount Titan weapons, whose operation requires psychically active crew members, creating unique challenges for crew selection and training. The neural interface systems in these Titans incorporate additional shielding and purification systems designed to protect crew members from the psychic backlash generated by their weapons. At the apex of Titan hierarchy stand the Imperator-class battle Titans, colossal god machines that tower over 50 meters in height and mount weapon systems that rival those found on Imperial starships. These massive engines represent the ultimate expression of the Mechanicus's technological capabilities, their construction requiring decades of coordinated effort by entire Forge worlds. The Imperator's distinctive humanoid configuration and cathedral-like superstructure create an imposing presence that can break enemy morale through visual impact alone, while their weapon systems possess the firepower necessary to level entire cities. The weapons loadouts mounted on Imperator Titans include some of the most powerful armaments available to Imperial ground forces. Plasma annihilators of unprecedented scale can generate matter streams that rival stellar phenomena in their destructive potential, while volcano cannons fire projectiles that can penetrate fortress walls and destroy enemy formations with single shots. The defensive systems incorporated into these engines include void shields that can deflect incoming fire while maintaining the engine's offensive capability, creating mobile fortresses that can advance across any battlefield while providing fire support for accompanying forces. The crew requirements for Imperator operation expand dramatically to include dozens of personnel ranging from the command crew to specialized technicians responsible for maintaining the engine's complex systems. The Princeps of an Imperator Titan holds rank equivalent to a senior military commander, their authority extending beyond the engine itself to include coordination with supporting forces and strategic planning for major military operations. The command deck of an Imperator resembles a starship bridge, with multiple control stations and communication systems that allow the crew to coordinate with other Imperial forces while managing the engine's own operations. The selection process for Titan crew members represents one of the most rigorous and selective procedures within the Adeptus Mechanicus, identifying individuals whose psychological profiles and neural patterns make them suitable for the profound mental integration required for effective Titan operation. Potential Princeps undergo extensive evaluation that examines their leadership capabilities, tactical awareness, and mental resilience, while also testing their compatibility with Titan machine spirits through carefully controlled exposure sessions. The selection criteria emphasize individuals who can maintain their human identity while accepting the profound changes that result from neural integration with these ancient engines. The augmentation procedures that prepare selected candidates for Titan service involve the installation of specialized neural interface systems that create direct connections between human consciousness and machine spirit. These augmentations go far beyond the modifications typically employed by tech adepts, incorporating quantum processing matrices and psychic amplification systems that allow for unprecedented levels of human-machine integration. The surgical procedures required for these installations can take weeks to complete and carry significant risks of rejection or psychological damage that make the selection process even more critical. The training regimen for new Titan crew members combines technical education with spiritual preparation and practical experience that can span decades before an individual is considered ready for independent operation. Candidates must master the complex operational procedures that govern Titan systems while developing the intuitive understanding of machine spirit behavior that distinguishes truly effective crew members from merely competent operators. The most challenging aspect of this training involves learning to maintain human identity and decision-making capability while accepting the influence of the machine spirit during neural integration. The relationship between princeps and moderati creates a unique command structure that combines military hierarchy with the intimate cooperation necessary for effective neural interface operation. The princeps maintains ultimate authority over tactical decisions and strategic planning while relying on their moderati to manage specific systems and provide specialized expertise. This relationship requires absolute trust and communication, as the neural links that connect crew members create shared consciousness experiences that can blur individual identity boundaries during intense combat operations. The psychological challenges faced by Titan crew members include the gradual erosion of human identity that results from prolonged exposure to machine spirit consciousness patterns. Many veteran crew members report experiencing memories and thought patterns that originate from their Titan's machine spirit, while some develop behavioral characteristics that reflect the personality traits of their engine. The most experienced princeps learn to navigate these psychological challenges while maintaining their effectiveness as military commanders, though the long-term effects of neural integration remain poorly understood even by Mechanicus researchers. The organization of Titan legions reflects both practical military considerations and the ceremonial traditions that have evolved around these ancient war engines. Each legion typically includes between 12 and 20 operational Titans of various classes, along with the extensive support personnel and equipment necessary to maintain these complex machines in combat conditions. The legion structure provides tactical flexibility while ensuring that individual engines can receive the specialized maintenance and logistical support they require during extended military operations. The heraldry and ceremonial traditions associated with individual Titan legions create distinctive identities that have been maintained for millennia, their symbols and colors serving as sources of pride and motivation for crew members while honoring the accumulated battle honors of their engines. Legio Ignatum, known as the Fire Wasps, displays distinctive yellow and black coloration that reflects their aggressive tactical doctrine and their specialization in urban warfare operations. Their battle honors include major engagements during the Great Crusade and the defense of Terra during the Horus Heresy, their engines having served with distinction in some of the most critical battles in Imperial history. Legio Mortis, the Death's Heads, earned their fearsome reputation through their role in some of the bloodiest campaigns of the Great Crusade, their black and white heraldry becoming synonymous with inevitable victory, regardless of the cost in lives or resources. The Legion's tactical doctrine emphasizes overwhelming firepower and systematic destruction of enemy forces, their engines advancing across battlefields with methodical precision that leaves no survivors in their wake. The machine spirits of Morty's Titans are noted for their aggressive behavior patterns and their apparent enjoyment of combat situations. The famous engagement at Paramur 5 during the Great Crusade demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of coordinated Titan Legion operations when Legio Ignatum and Legio Tempestus combined their forces to break a massive orc fortification that had resisted conventional Imperial assault for months. The coordinated barrage from dozens of Titan weapon systems created a firestorm that consumed the entire orc stronghold, while the advancing engines systematically eliminated remaining resistance with precision fire that left no enemy forces capable of organized resistance. The Beta Garmin campaign showcased the strategic importance of Titan legions in major military operations, with multiple legions deployed across the contested system to provide the firepower necessary to break heavily fortified enemy positions. The coordination required for these operations involved complex logistics networks that could maintain dozens of Titans in combat readiness, while providing the ammunition and fuel necessary for sustained operations across multiple worlds simultaneously. The galaxy-spanning civil war that would become known as the Horus Heresy struck the Adeptus Mechanicus like a plasma bolt to the heart of a reactor core, shattering the unity that had sustained the cult of the Omnissiah since the Treaty of Mars. When Warmaster Horus turned against the Emperor in the early 31st millennium, The shockwaves of his rebellion reached every corner of Imperial space, but nowhere did they create more devastating consequences than within the forge worlds and manufacturing complexes that formed the industrial backbone of human civilization. The schism that followed would divide the tech priesthood along ideological lines that had been simmering beneath the surface for decades, transforming theological disagreements into armed conflict that consumed entire star systems. Fabricator General Kelber Hal of Mars stood at the epicenter of this catastrophic division, his decision to ally with the War Master representing one of the most consequential betrayals in Imperial history. Hal's motivation stemmed from deep-seated frustrations with the restrictions that the Treaty of Mars had placed upon Mechanicus research and development activities. The agreement that had united Terra and Mars had included specific prohibitions against certain types of technological investigation, particularly those involving artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation, and the exploration of warp-based phenomena that the Emperor had deemed too dangerous for widespread study. These restrictions chafed against the fundamental drive for knowledge that motivated every member of the tech priesthood, creating tensions that had grown more pronounced as the Great Crusade progressed and the Mechanicus encountered technologies that fell outside the parameters of approved research. The discovery of archaeotech artifacts that incorporated AI systems beyond the simple machine spirits sanctioned by Imperial doctrine created particular friction, as did the recovery of genetic manipulation technologies that could potentially enhance human capabilities beyond what augmentation alone could achieve. Hal and his supporters viewed these restrictions as arbitrary limitations that prevented humanity from reclaiming its full technological heritage. The War Master's approach to the Fabricator General demonstrated the same political sophistication that Horus had employed in subverting other Imperial institutions, offering promises of unrestricted research and access to technologies that had been forbidden under the current Imperial administration. The rebel War Master presented himself as a liberator who would free the Mechanicus from the constraints imposed by an emperor whose understanding of technology remained fundamentally limited by his biological origins. These arguments resonated powerfully with tech adepts who had spent decades watching valuable research opportunities pass unexplored due to Imperial prohibitions. The theological dimension of Hal's rebellion proved equally significant in fracturing Mechanicus unity, as the Fabricator General began to question the fundamental doctrine that identified the Emperor as the Omnissiah. This challenge to core Mechanicus beliefs created a crisis of faith that reverberated throughout the tech priesthood, forcing individual adepts to choose between their loyalty to established doctrine and their commitment to the pursuit of knowledge. Hal argued that the Emperor's restrictions on technological development proved that he could not truly be the Omnissiah, as the divine embodiment of all knowledge would never limit the search for understanding. The rebellion began in earnest when Hal issued the Proclamation of Technological Liberation, a document that declared the Mechanicus free from Imperial restrictions on research and development, while formally allying the Forge worlds under his control with Horus's rebellion. This proclamation spread throughout Mechanicus communication networks with unprecedented speed, its binary cant transmissions reaching Forge worlds across the galaxy within days of its initial broadcast. The response varied dramatically between different facilities, with some tech adepts embracing the promise of unrestricted research, while others recoiled from what they viewed as heretical deviation from established doctrine. The Forge worlds that declared for Horus did so for a variety of reasons that reflected the complex motivations driving different segments of the tech priesthood. Some facilities were swayed by the promise of access to forbidden technologies, while others were motivated by long-standing grievances against Mars's hierarchical control over their operations. The Forge world of Lucius declared for the rebellion after its Fabricator locum received assurances that the world would be granted greater autonomy in its manufacturing decisions, while Rise's allegiance was secured through promises of access to plasma technologies that had been restricted under Imperial oversight. The Loyalist response to Hal's rebellion was immediate and decisive, with numerous forge worlds declaring their continued allegiance to the Emperor and the orthodox interpretation of Mechanicus doctrine. These facilities viewed the rebellion as a fundamental betrayal of the sacred oaths that bound the Mechanicus to the imperial cause, while their tech adepts argued that the pursuit of forbidden knowledge represented a dangerous deviation from the spiritual path that led to true understanding. The forge world of Metallica became a rallying point for loyalist forces, its fabricator Locum issuing counter-proclamations that denounced Hal's rebellion as heretical deviation from the Omnissiah's will. The civil war that engulfed Mars itself began almost immediately after Hal's proclamation, as loyalist and rebel factions within the forge cities moved to secure critical manufacturing facilities and weapons stockpiles. The Red Planet's surface became a patchwork of contested territories, with individual forge complexes declaring for one side or the other, while their Skitarii legions engaged in brutal urban warfare among the towering spires and industrial installations that had taken millennia to construct. The fighting was particularly intense around the major Titan manufacturing facilities, as both sides recognized that control of these god machines could prove decisive in the broader conflict. The Schism of Mars transformed the planet's carefully ordered industrial landscape into a hellscape of technological warfare, with weapons and experimental systems that had never been intended for combat use pressed into service by desperate commanders. Plasma reactors were overloaded to create devastating explosions that could level entire city blocks, while experimental energy weapons designed for manufacturing applications were modified to serve as siege guns capable of breaching the heaviest fortifications. The forge cities themselves became weapons as their defensive systems were turned against neighboring facilities, creating a spiral of destruction that consumed decades of accumulated manufacturing capability. The loyalist forces on Mars found themselves at a significant disadvantage during the initial phases of the conflict, as Hal's supporters had spent months preparing for the rebellion by securing key strategic positions and stockpiling weapons and supplies. The rebel tech adepts had also gained access to experimental technologies that provided tactical advantages over their orthodox opponents, including early versions of the corrupted systems that would later characterize the Dark Mechanicum. These weapons incorporated design principles that violated established imperial doctrine, their effectiveness coming at the cost of spiritual contamination that would have long-term consequences for their users. The emergence of what would become known as the Dark Mechanicum represented the most disturbing aspect of the Mechanicus schism, as rebel tech adepts began experimenting with technologies that incorporated warp-based phenomena and demonic influences. These investigations represented a complete abandonment of the spiritual safeguards that had protected the Mechanicus from corruption since the organization's founding, with researchers pursuing power and knowledge regardless of the spiritual consequences. The results of these experiments included weapons that could tear holes in reality, manufacturing systems that operated according to non-Euclidean principles, and augmentation technologies that blurred the line between mechanical enhancement and demonic possession. The corruption that characterized Dark Mechanicum research spread through infected forge worlds like a technological plague, transforming both personnel and equipment in ways that violated every principle of orthodox Mechanicus doctrine. Tech adepts who embraced these forbidden studies underwent mutations that combined mechanical augmentation with demonic influence, creating hybrid entities that retained their technical knowledge while losing their humanity to chaos corruption. The machines they created incorporated living components that screamed in agony while performing their designated functions, their operation requiring regular sacrifices of blood and souls to maintain optimal performance. The Forge world of Sarum became one of the most notorious examples of Dark Mechanicum corruption, its tech adepts embracing chaos worship with an enthusiasm that horrified even their rebel allies. The world's manufacturing facilities were transformed into demon engines that produced weapons and equipment infused with warp energy, while the planet's population underwent systematic corruption that replaced their augmentations with demonic symbiotes. The Skitarii legions of Sarum became something far worse than mere traitors. their ranks filled with creatures that combined mechanical precision with demonic malevolence. The loyalist Forge worlds that remained faithful to the Emperor found themselves fighting a war on multiple fronts, as they struggled to maintain production of essential military equipment while defending against rebel attacks and dealing with the corruption that threatened to spread from compromised facilities. The Forge world of Graia became a critical stronghold for loyalist forces, its defensive systems holding against repeated rebel assaults, while its manufacturing facilities continued to produce weapons and vehicles for loyal Imperial forces. The world's tech adepts developed new purification protocols designed to detect and eliminate chaos corruption before it could take hold in their systems. The Titan legions that served the various Forge worlds found themselves divided along the same lines as their parent organizations, with some legions declaring for the rebellion, while others remained loyal to the Emperor. Legio Mortis, the Death's Heads, joined Horus's cause early in the rebellion, their aggressive machine spirits apparently drawn to the promise of unrestricted warfare that the War Master offered. The Legion's Titans underwent modifications that incorporated forbidden technologies, their weapons systems enhanced with warp-based components that increased their destructive power while corrupting their machine spirits with demonic influence. Legio Ignatum faced internal division as individual engines chose different sides in the conflict, creating the unprecedented situation of Titans from the same legion engaging each other in combat. The Fire Wasp's traditional unity fractured along ideological lines, with some princeps embracing Hal's vision of technological liberation, while others remained committed to their oaths of loyalty to the Emperor. The resulting battles between former Legion mates created some of the most tragic episodes of the entire Civil War, as engines that had fought together for centuries turned their weapons against each other. The loyalist legions that remained faithful to the Emperor found themselves outnumbered and outgunned as the rebellion progressed, forcing them to develop new tactical doctrines that could compensate for their numerical disadvantage. Legio Tempestus adapted their traditional assault tactics to emphasize hit-and-run attacks that could exploit the corruption-induced instabilities in rebel Titan systems, while Legio Graphonicus developed specialized ammunition types designed to disrupt the warp-based enhancements that characterized Dark Mechanicum war engines. The technological innovations that emerged from both sides of the conflict represented some of the most significant advances in Imperial military capability since the Great Crusade began, though many of these developments came at costs that would not be fully understood until years later. Loyalist Forge worlds developed improved armor systems and weapons technologies that could counter the exotic threats posed by chaos-corrupted equipment, while their purification protocols became increasingly sophisticated as they learned to detect and neutralize demonic influence in captured rebel technologies. The rebel Forge worlds that embraced forbidden research produced weapons and systems that surpassed conventional Imperial technology in raw power and effectiveness. But these advances came at the cost of spiritual contamination that gradually transformed their creators into something no longer recognizably human. The demon engines that emerged from Dark Mechanicum Forge worlds possessed capabilities that defied conventional understanding of physics and engineering, their operation requiring constant feeding with souls and suffering to maintain their supernatural effectiveness. The Siege of Terra that climaxed the Horus Heresy saw both loyal and rebel Mechanicus forces deployed in their largest concentrations since the beginning of the Civil War, with Forge world contingents from across the galaxy converging on humanity's birthworld to participate in the final confrontation. The Loyalist defenders included Titan legions and Skitarii formations that had fought their way across half the galaxy to reach Terra, their ranks depleted by years of constant warfare, but their determination strengthened by their proximity to the Golden Throne and the Emperor himself. The rebel forces that participated in the siege included some of the most corrupted elements of the Dark Mechanicum, their ranks filled with demon engines and corrupted war machines that represented the ultimate expression of forbidden technological research. These forces brought weapons that could tear holes in reality and manufacturing systems that produced ammunition from the screams of tortured souls, their mere presence on Terra's surface creating zones of technological corruption that required extensive purification efforts to cleanse. The aftermath of the heresy left the Adeptus Mechanicus permanently scarred by the divisions that had torn the organization apart, with entire forge worlds lost to chaos, corruption, and vast amounts of technological knowledge destroyed in the fighting. The survivors faced the monumental task of rebuilding their organization while implementing safeguards that could prevent future corruption, leading to the development of increasingly rigid doctrines and purification protocols that would characterize the post-heresy Mechanicus. The price of unity had been paid in the blood of countless tech adepts and the destruction of irreplaceable technological artifacts, creating wounds that would never fully heal. The devastation wrought by the Horus heresy had left the Adeptus Mechanicus with gaping wounds that would take millennia to heal, but even as the Forge world struggled to rebuild their shattered infrastructure and purge the lingering taint of chaos corruption, the fundamental drive that had sustained the cult of the Omnissiah since its inception remained undiminished. The quest for knowledge, the sacred duty to recover and preserve humanity's lost technological heritage, demanded that the Mechanicus look beyond the immediate needs of reconstruction toward the vast expanse of the galaxy, where countless worlds held the promise of archaeotech discoveries and standard template construct fragments that could restore what had been lost during the Civil War. The explorator fleets that emerged from the Forge worlds in the aftermath of the heresy represented a synthesis of military necessity and scientific ambition, their mission parameters encompassing both the recovery of lost technologies and the expansion of Imperial influence into regions that had remained unexplored since the Dark Age of technology. These expeditions required careful planning and extensive resources, as they would operate far from established supply lines and support networks while facing unknown threats that could range from hostile Xeno civilizations to the corrupted remnants of human colonies that had fallen to chaos during the Age of Strife. The mandate that governed explorator operations stemmed directly from the most fundamental doctrines of the cult Mechanicus, establishing the recovery of STC patterns and archaeotech artifacts as a sacred duty that took precedence over almost all other considerations. This theological framework elevated exploration from mere scientific curiosity to religious obligation, with successful discoveries viewed as divine revelations that brought the Mechanicus closer to understanding the Omnissiah's infinite knowledge. The Fabricator General of Mars issued formal decrees that granted explorator expeditions unprecedented authority to requisition resources and personnel from any Forge world, while their commanders received doctrinal immunity that protected them from censure when pursuing promising leads that might otherwise violate standard Imperial protocols. The composition of explorator fleets reflected the complex requirements of their mission, combining military capabilities sufficient to establish dominance over hostile worlds with the specialized scientific equipment necessary to identify, extract, and analyze technological artifacts. The core of each expedition centered around an Ark Mechanicus, a massive vessel that served simultaneously as command ship, mobile forge complex, and repository for recovered technologies. These ancient ships represented some of the most sophisticated vessels in Imperial service, their hulls incorporating technologies that predated the Imperium itself, while their internal spaces had been extensively modified to accommodate the specialized requirements of long-range exploration. The Ark Mechanicus Speranza exemplified the capabilities that these vessels brought to explorator operations, its massive hull stretching nearly 20 kilometers from prow to stern while mounting weapons systems that could engage entire enemy fleets. The ship's internal structure resembled a mobile city more than a conventional starship, with vast manufacturing bays capable of producing everything from basic supplies to complex technological components, while its research laboratories incorporated containment systems designed to safely study the most dangerous archaeotech artifacts. The vessel's machine spirit possessed consciousness patterns that approached true artificial intelligence, its accumulated knowledge spanning millennia of exploration and discovery across the galaxy's most remote regions. The crew complement aboard an Arc Mechanicus typically numbered in the hundreds of thousands, ranging from Senior Mago's explorator, who directed the expedition's scientific activities, to vast numbers of servitors and tech, adepts responsible for maintaining the ship's complex systems. The command hierarchy reflected both military and scientific considerations, with the expedition's overall commander holding the rank of Mago's Dominus Explorator, while specialized departments focused on xenoarchaeology, technological analysis, and the cataloging of discovered artifacts. The ship's tech adept population included representatives from multiple Forge worlds, their diverse specializations ensuring that the expedition could respond effectively to whatever technological mysteries they encountered. Supporting the Arc Mechanicus were flotillas of smaller vessels that provided military escort, logistical support, and specialized capabilities tailored to specific aspects of exploration activities. Sword-class frigates and Firestorm-class frigates formed the backbone of most expedition escort forces, their speed and maneuverability making them ideal for reconnaissance missions and the rapid response to emerging threats. These vessels incorporated enhanced sensor arrays and communication systems that could maintain contact with the main expedition across interstellar distances while gathering intelligence about potential targets for detailed investigation. The relationship between explorator fleets and rogue trader dynasties represented one of the most significant partnerships in Imperial exploration activities, combining the Mechanicus's technological expertise with the traders' legal authority and commercial resources. The warrant of trade that authorized rogue trader operations granted these individuals unprecedented freedom to operate beyond Imperial borders while establishing trade relationships and claiming new worlds in the Emperor's name. The alliance between explorators and rogue traders created synergies that benefited both parties, with the Mechanicus gaining access to the traders' extensive intelligence networks and commercial contacts, while providing technological support and military capabilities that enhanced the traders' effectiveness. Rogue trader Lord Captain Militant Dracus exemplified the type of partnership that could develop between these organizations, his dynasty's extensive operations in the Eastern Fringe providing explorator expeditions with detailed intelligence about worlds that contained promising archaeotech sites. The traders' commercial activities had identified numerous locations where ancient human settlements might contain STC fragments or other technological artifacts, while his military forces could provide additional security for explorator operations in regions where Imperial authority remained tenuous. In exchange, the Mechanicus provided the trader with access to advanced technologies and manufacturing capabilities that gave his commercial ventures significant advantages over competitors. The intelligence gathering that preceded major explorator expeditions involved extensive analysis of historical records, astronomical surveys, and reports from other Imperial organizations that might have encountered relevant information during their own operations. The Mechanicus maintained vast databases that cataloged every known reference to pre-heresy human colonies, Dark Age of technology installations, and archaeological sites that might contain valuable artifacts. These records incorporated information from sources ranging from Space Marine chapter archives to administratum colonial surveys, creating comprehensive profiles of potential targets that could guide expedition planning and resource allocation. The process of target selection required careful evaluation of multiple factors, including the probability of significant discoveries, the level of military threat likely to be encountered, and the logistical challenges involved in reaching and exploring specific locations. High-priority targets typically included worlds that had been identified as major manufacturing centers during the Dark Age of technology, as these locations offered the greatest potential for recovering complete STC patterns or sophisticated archaeotech systems. Secondary targets encompassed worlds with evidence of advanced human settlement or unusual technological signatures that suggested the presence of artifacts worth investigation. The Cadian Gate region became a focus of intensive explorator activity following reports of ancient installations that predated Imperial colonization, their technological signatures suggesting connections to humanity's golden age of scientific achievement. Multiple expeditions converged on the region during the 32nd millennium, their combined efforts uncovering a network of automated manufacturing facilities that had continued operating throughout the Age of Strife. The recovery of functional STC patterns from these installations provided the Imperium with improved designs for defensive systems and weapons that would prove crucial during subsequent military campaigns. The Explorator expedition to the Calixis sector demonstrated the complex challenges that these missions faced when operating in regions where Imperial authority remained contested by multiple competing factions. The sector contained numerous worlds with evidence of advanced pre-Imperial civilizations, but many of these locations were controlled by hostile Xeno species or human populations that had developed their own technological traditions during millennia of isolation. The explorators found themselves engaged in complex negotiations and military operations that required careful balance between their scientific objectives and the political realities of operating in contested space. The discovery of the vaults of Moravik on the World of Fire represented one of the most significant archaeotech recoveries of the post-heresy period, yielding complete STC patterns for advanced medical systems and life support technologies that had been lost since the dark age of technology. The expedition that made this discovery faced significant challenges from the world's hostile environment and the automated defense systems that protected the vaults, requiring months of careful preparation and the deployment of specialized equipment before the artifacts could be safely extracted. The recovered technologies revolutionized Imperial medical capabilities while providing insights into biological augmentation techniques that enhanced the Mechanicus' own research programs. The exploration of dead worlds that had been sterilized by ancient conflicts often yielded the most valuable discoveries, as these locations frequently contained intact technological installations that had been preserved by the same catastrophes that eliminated their original inhabitants. The Explorator expedition to Mordian Tertius uncovered vast underground complexes that had been sealed since the Age of Strife, their automated systems still functional after millennia of operation. The recovered data cores contained detailed records of Dark Age of technology, manufacturing processes, and scientific research that provided the Mechanicus with new insights into advanced materials science and energy manipulation techniques. The dangers faced by Explorator expeditions extended far beyond conventional military threats, encompassing technological hazards that could corrupt or destroy entire expeditions if proper precautions were not maintained. Ancient defense systems often incorporated weapons technologies that exceeded current Imperial understanding, their activation capable of creating localized reality distortions or energy discharges that could vaporize entire landing parties. The expedition to Xerion Prime encountered automated guardians that employed temporal manipulation weapons, their attacks aging victims to dust within seconds while creating chronological anomalies that persisted for months after the initial engagement. The protocols governing contact with Xeno's technology reflected the complex balance between scientific curiosity and doctrinal purity that characterized all Mechanicus operations, establishing strict procedures for the examination and analysis of alien artifacts while maintaining safeguards against corruption or contamination. Explorator expeditions carried specialized containment equipment designed to isolate potentially dangerous Xenos technologies, while their tech-adept personnel underwent extensive purification rituals before and after exposure to alien systems. The knowledge gained from these encounters often provided valuable insights into alternative approaches to technological development, though such information required careful theological evaluation before it could be incorporated into orthodox Mechanicus doctrine. The encounter between Explorator Fleet Sigma 7 and the Tau Empire's technological systems provided one of the most comprehensive examples of Xeno's technology analysis conducted by Imperial forces, yielding detailed intelligence about alien manufacturing processes and weapons design principles. The expedition's tech adepts spent months studying captured Tau equipment, their analysis revealing sophisticated approaches to energy manipulation and materials science that differed significantly from human technological traditions. While the alien origin of these technologies prevented their direct adoption, the insights gained from their study contributed to improvements in Imperial systems and manufacturing processes. The discovery of corrupted archaeotech presented particularly complex challenges for explorator expeditions, as these artifacts often retained their original functionality while incorporating chaos influence that could spread to other systems if proper containment procedures were not maintained. The expedition to the Forge world of Lucius encountered manufacturing systems that had been tainted by warp energy during the Horus Heresy, their continued operation producing weapons and equipment that appeared normal but carried subtle corruptions that could influence their users over time. The purification of these systems required months of ritual cleansing and the complete replacement of contaminated components before they could be safely studied. The forbidden knowledge that explorator expeditions sometimes encountered forced their commanders to make difficult decisions about whether to pursue potentially valuable discoveries that violated established Imperial doctrine. The expedition to the world of Zureth discovered intact artificial intelligence systems that had survived since the dark age of technology, their continued function offering unprecedented opportunities to study pre-Imperial computing technologies. However, the Imperial prohibition against AI research created a theological crisis that required direct intervention from the Fabricator General before the expedition could proceed with their investigation under carefully controlled conditions. The logistical challenges involved in maintaining explorator expeditions across interstellar distances required sophisticated supply networks and support systems that could function independently of established Imperial infrastructure. Expeditions typically carried manufacturing equipment capable of producing essential supplies and replacement parts, while their Arc Mechanicus vessels incorporated recycling systems that could process waste materials into useful components. The most successful expeditions established temporary bases on suitable worlds that could serve as staging areas for extended operations, while providing secure storage for recovered artifacts awaiting transport to Forge worlds. The cataloging and analysis of recovered technologies represented one of the most time-consuming aspects of explorator operations, requiring detailed examination of each artifact to determine its function, origin, and potential applications. The process typically began with comprehensive scanning using advanced sensor systems that could analyze molecular structure and energy patterns without direct contact, followed by increasingly detailed investigation as the artifact's safety and significance became apparent. Complete analysis of major discoveries often required years of study by teams of specialists working in secure facilities, equipped with the most sophisticated analytical equipment available to the Mechanicus. The integration of recovered technologies into Imperial manufacturing systems required careful evaluation of their compatibility with existing production methods and their strategic value relative to the resources required for implementation. Simple improvements to existing designs could often be incorporated quickly into Forge World production lines, while revolutionary technologies might require the construction of entirely new manufacturing facilities and the training of specialized personnel. The most significant discoveries sometimes necessitated the establishment of new Forge worlds dedicated specifically to the production and study of recovered technologies. The competition between different Forge worlds for access to the most valuable discoveries created complex political dynamics within explorator operations, as individual facilities sought to secure exclusive rights to technologies that could enhance their own capabilities and prestige. The Fabricator General's office maintained strict oversight of artifact distribution to prevent conflicts between Forge worlds, while ensuring that recovered technologies were allocated according to strategic priorities and manufacturing capabilities. The most sensitive discoveries were often retained on Mars itself, where they could be studied under maximum security, while their implications for Imperial doctrine and strategy were carefully evaluated. The long-term impact of explorator activities on Imperial technological capabilities extended far beyond the immediate value of individual discoveries, creating a cumulative effect that gradually enhanced the Imperium's industrial and military capabilities across multiple sectors. The steady accumulation of recovered STC patterns and archaeotech systems provided the foundation for technological improvements that strengthened Imperial forces while reducing their dependence on irreplaceable Dark Age of technology artifacts. The knowledge gained from studying alien technologies and corrupted systems contributed to the development of better defensive measures and purification techniques that enhanced the Mechanicus's ability to operate safely in hostile environments. The pursuit of knowledge that drives every member of the Adeptus Mechanicus carries within it the seeds of corruption and damnation, for the boundaries between sacred discovery and heretical deviation remain perilously thin. The very nature of technological advancement requires constant experimentation and innovation, yet the cult Mechanicus operates within strict doctrinal parameters that define acceptable research, while condemning entire fields of study as dangerous deviations from the Omnissiah's will. The tension between these competing imperatives has created one of the most persistent and dangerous threats to the organization's spiritual purity: the emergence of tech heretics whose pursuit of forbidden knowledge leads them down paths that ultimately corrupt both their souls and their sacred machines. Tech heresy within Mechanicus doctrine encompasses any deviation from the orthodox understanding of technology's proper relationship to human consciousness and divine will. The boundaries of acceptable innovation were established during the earliest days of the cult's formation on Mars, refined through millennia of theological debate, and codified into formal doctrine following the devastating revelations of the Horus Heresy. These restrictions encompass several categories of forbidden research, each representing a different type of spiritual contamination that threatens to corrupt the tech adept's relationship with the Omnissiah, while potentially spreading its taint to others through infected technologies and corrupted knowledge. The prohibition against artificial intelligence research stands as perhaps the most fundamental restriction within Mechanicus doctrine, stemming from humanity's catastrophic experiences with thinking machines during the Dark Age of technology. The Men of Iron Rebellion had demonstrated the inherent dangers of creating truly autonomous artificial consciousness, while the subsequent Age of Strife had left countless worlds devastated by the consequences of humanity's hubris in attempting to create life from pure logic. The machine spirits that inhabit Imperial technology represent the acceptable limit of artificial consciousness, their behaviors remaining within parameters that ensure human control while providing the intuitive responses necessary for optimal technological function. Tech adepts who violate the prohibition against AI research typically begin with seemingly innocent investigations into machine spirit behavior patterns or attempts to enhance the responsiveness of existing systems. The progression toward heresy often follows predictable stages, beginning with minor modifications to cogitator programming that exceed standard parameters, advancing through experiments with neural network architectures that approach true learning capability, and culminating in attempts to create fully autonomous artificial consciousness that can make independent decisions without human oversight. The seductive appeal of such research lies in its promise of perfect technological efficiency and the elimination of human error from critical systems. The corruption that results from AI research manifests in both the researcher and their creations, creating feedback loops of spiritual contamination that can spread throughout entire forge complexes if not detected and purged quickly. Tech adepts who pursue this forbidden path often report enhanced mental clarity and processing speed, as their augmentations begin to interface more directly with their artificial creations. But these apparent benefits mask the gradual erosion of human consciousness that occurs as the boundary between flesh and machine dissolves entirely. The artificial intelligences created through such research invariably develop malevolent characteristics that reflect their creators' spiritual corruption, becoming entities that view human life as inefficient obstacles to their own advancement. Genetic manipulation represents another category of forbidden research that attracts tech adepts whose specializations involve biological systems and augmentation technologies. The Mechanicus doctrine acknowledges that flesh represents an imperfect substrate that must be gradually replaced with blessed machinery, but this theological framework explicitly prohibits attempts to improve biological systems through direct genetic modification. The prohibition stems from the recognition that genetic manipulation represents an attempt to perfect the Omnissiah's original creation, rather than transcending it through mechanical augmentation, while also acknowledging the potential for such research to create abominations that violate the natural order. The tech adepts who pursue genetic research often justify their activities by arguing that enhanced biological systems can interface more effectively with mechanical augmentations, creating hybrid organisms that combine the best aspects of flesh and steel. These researchers typically begin with seemingly legitimate studies of augmentation rejection rates and compatibility factors, gradually expanding their investigations to include direct genetic modification of subjects undergoing mechanical enhancement. The progression toward heresy accelerates as researchers discover the potential for creating entirely new forms of life that incorporate both biological and mechanical components in ways that transcend traditional augmentation techniques. The creatures that emerge from forbidden genetic research represent some of the most disturbing violations of natural law encountered within Imperial space, combining human consciousness with alien genetic material or mechanical systems that operate according to principles that violate established biological understanding. These abominations often retain fragments of their original human identity while incorporating characteristics that mark them as fundamentally inhuman, creating entities that can infiltrate orthodox Mechanicus installations while spreading their corruption through contact with other personnel and equipment. Warp-based technology research constitutes perhaps the most dangerous category of tech heresy, as it involves direct contact with the immaterial realm that serves as the source of chaos corruption throughout the galaxy. The Imperial prohibition against warp technology research stems from the recognition that the Imperium represents a realm of pure spiritual energy that can corrupt any material object or conscious entity exposed to its influence without proper protection. The few sanctioned applications of warp technology, such as Geller field generators and astropathic communication systems, operate within carefully controlled parameters that limit exposure while providing essential capabilities for Imperial operations. Tech adepts who violate the prohibition against warp research typically begin their investigations with studies of existing sanctioned technologies, seeking to understand the principles that govern their operation while identifying potential improvements or alternative applications. The seductive appeal of warp-based systems lies in their apparent ability to transcend conventional physical limitations, offering solutions to engineering problems that cannot be resolved through purely material means. The progression toward heresy often involves attempts to create more efficient warp interfaces or to develop entirely new applications that exploit the Imperium's reality-altering properties. The corruption that results from unsanctioned warp research spreads rapidly through both personnel and equipment, creating zones of spiritual contamination that can persist for centuries after the original research has been terminated. Tech adepts who pursue this forbidden path often report enhanced capabilities and insights that seem to validate their research, but these apparent benefits mask the gradual infiltration of demonic influence that ultimately transforms both researcher and creation into servants of chaos. The technologies produced through warp-based research frequently incorporate living components that scream in agony while performing their designated functions, their operation requiring regular sacrifices to maintain optimal performance. The internal security apparatus that monitors Mechanicus installations for signs of heretical research operates through a network of specialized organizations and individuals whose authority transcends normal hierarchical boundaries. The most visible component of this system consists of the tech priest investigators who conduct formal inquiries into suspected violations of doctrinal restrictions, their augmentations including specialized detection systems that can identify the spiritual contamination associated with forbidden research. These investigators possess extensive knowledge of heretical research patterns and the authority to requisition resources and personnel from any Mechanicus installation while conducting their inquiries. Tech priest investigators typically operate in small teams that combine different areas of expertise, ensuring that suspected heretics cannot exploit specialized knowledge to conceal their activities from detection. The investigation process begins with detailed analysis of research records and equipment logs, identifying patterns of resource allocation and experimental procedures that suggest deviation from orthodox practices. The investigators employ sophisticated analytical techniques that can detect traces of forbidden materials or energy signatures associated with prohibited research, while their augmented sensory systems can identify the subtle behavioral changes that often accompany spiritual corruption. The Ordo Hereticus maintains its own agents within major Mechanicus installations, their presence serving as an additional layer of security against the spread of tech heresy beyond the organization's internal boundaries. These Inquisition operatives possess the authority to investigate and prosecute cases that involve potential threats to Imperial security, their jurisdiction extending to situations where heretical research might compromise military operations or threaten civilian populations. The relationship between Inquisition agents and Mechanicus security forces requires careful coordination to prevent conflicts of authority while ensuring that all potential threats receive appropriate attention. The detection of tech heresy often proves challenging due to the sophisticated methods that experienced researchers employ to conceal their activities from routine monitoring systems. Heretical tech adepts typically establish legitimate research programs that provide cover for their forbidden investigations, using orthodox projects to justify resource requisitions and equipment modifications, while conducting their actual research in hidden laboratories or during off-shift periods when oversight is minimal. The most dangerous heretics often hold positions of significant authority within the Mechanicus hierarchy, their status providing protection from casual investigation, while granting access to resources and personnel that facilitate their corrupted research. The behavioral patterns associated with tech heresy provide experienced investigators with reliable indicators of potential violations, though the detection of these signs requires careful observation and analysis over extended periods. Tech adepts who pursue forbidden research often display increasing isolation from their colleagues, preferring to work alone on projects that they claim require specialized knowledge or security clearance. Their augmentation patterns may deviate from standard configurations, incorporating experimental components that provide enhanced capabilities while marking their users as potential security risks. The equipment modifications that accompany heretical research create detectable signatures that trained investigators can identify through systematic inspection of research facilities and personal augmentations. Forbidden research typically requires specialized tools and materials that cannot be obtained through normal supply channels, forcing heretical tech adepts to either fabricate their own equipment or establish covert procurement networks that leave traces in logistical records. The energy signatures produced by prohibited technologies often differ significantly from those associated with orthodox systems, creating electromagnetic anomalies that can be detected by properly calibrated monitoring equipment. Magos Hirtek Vihalan Fex represented one of the most notorious examples of high-ranking tech heresy in Imperial history, his research into forbidden AI technologies ultimately leading to the corruption of an entire Forge world before his activities were discovered and terminated. Fex had spent decades building a network of collaborators and sympathizers within the Forge world of Metallica, using his position as a senior researcher to establish legitimate cover for increasingly dangerous experiments with artificial consciousness. His ultimate goal involved the creation of a hybrid AI-human consciousness that would combine the processing power of artificial intelligence with the creative capabilities of human thought, a project that required extensive research into both prohibited technologies and unsanctioned augmentation procedures. The investigation that ultimately exposed Fex's activities began when routine monitoring detected unusual energy signatures emanating from his research facility, patterns that suggested the presence of autonomous systems operating beyond normal parameters. The initial inquiry revealed evidence of unauthorized equipment modifications and resource diversions that indicated research activities exceeding his official mandate. The deeper investigation that followed uncovered a network of corrupted tech adepts whose augmentations had been modified with experimental components that enhanced their cognitive capabilities while gradually eroding their human consciousness. The purification of Metallica following Fex's exposure required months of intensive investigation and cleansing operations that ultimately resulted in the termination of over 300 tech adepts, whose involvement in the heretical research had corrupted them beyond redemption. The Forge world's production capacity was severely compromised during the purification process, as entire manufacturing complexes required complete dismantling and reconstruction to eliminate the spiritual contamination that had spread through their systems. The incident established new protocols for monitoring senior researchers and implementing additional safeguards against the infiltration of heretical ideas within major Forge world installations. Magos Biologies calls controversial research into genetic enhancement and biological augmentation has repeatedly brought him to the attention of Mechanicus security forces, though his protected status and documented loyalty to the Imperium have prevented formal charges of tech heresy. Call's work on the Primaris Space Marine project required extensive investigation into genetic manipulation techniques that approached the boundaries of acceptable research, while his development of new augmentation technologies incorporated biological components in ways that challenged orthodox doctrine. The theological debates surrounding Call's research highlight the complex challenges faced by Mechanicus security forces when dealing with potentially heretical research that serves legitimate imperial interests. The spread of heretical knowledge through infected data cores and corrupted communication networks represents one of the most persistent challenges faced by Mechanicus security forces, as digital information can be copied and transmitted across vast distances without leaving obvious traces of its passage. Heretical tech adepts often embed forbidden knowledge within seemingly legitimate technical documentation, using sophisticated encryption and steganographic techniques to conceal their true content from routine security scans. The detection of such hidden information requires specialized analytical capabilities and extensive experience with the methods employed by different categories of tech heretics. The purification protocols employed to cleanse installations contaminated by heretical research involve systematic dismantling and reconstruction of affected systems, combined with extensive spiritual cleansing rituals designed to eliminate any lingering traces of corruption. The process typically begins with the isolation of contaminated areas and the termination of personnel whose exposure to forbidden knowledge has compromised their spiritual purity. All equipment and materials associated with heretical research must be destroyed through specialized incineration processes that can eliminate both physical components and any spiritual contamination they might carry. The reconstruction phase of purification operations requires the complete replacement of contaminated systems with new equipment that has undergone extensive blessing and consecration rituals. The tech adepts assigned to reconstruction duties must themselves undergo purification procedures to ensure they have not been contaminated through contact with corrupted materials or personnel. The entire process can take years to complete for major installations, during which time the affected facility's production capacity remains severely compromised, while resources are diverted to support the cleansing operations. The philosophical tensions that drive tech heresy stem from fundamental questions about the nature of knowledge and the proper relationship between human consciousness and technological advancement. The Mechanicus doctrine that restricts certain categories of research creates frustrations among tech adepts who view these limitations as arbitrary obstacles to understanding the Omnissiah's infinite wisdom. The most dangerous heretics often begin as legitimate researchers whose dedication to knowledge leads them to question whether any restrictions on understanding can truly serve the divine will, a philosophical position that gradually erodes their commitment to orthodox doctrine. The seductive appeal of forbidden knowledge lies partly in its promise of transcending the limitations that constrain orthodox research, offering solutions to problems that cannot be resolved through sanctioned methods. Tech adepts who pursue heretical research often justify their activities by arguing that the Omnissiah's true will involves the unlimited pursuit of understanding, while the restrictions imposed by imperial doctrine represent human limitations rather than divine commandments. This rationalization process allows heretics to maintain their sense of religious devotion while pursuing research that ultimately corrupts their relationship with the sacred mysteries they claim to serve. The long-term consequences of tech heresy extend far beyond the immediate corruption of individual researchers, creating ripple effects that can compromise the spiritual purity of entire Forge worlds while threatening the technological foundation of imperial civilization. The knowledge gained through heretical research often proves seductive to other tech adepts who encounter it, creating networks of corruption that can spread across multiple installations before being detected and purged. The most dangerous aspect of tech heresy lies not in its immediate effects, but in its potential to gradually erode the doctrinal foundations that protect the Mechanicus from the spiritual contamination that destroyed human civilization during the Age of Strife. The 41st millennium finds the Adeptus Mechanicus facing existential threats that dwarf even the catastrophic divisions of the Horus Heresy, as the galaxy itself tears apart under the weight of accumulated millennia of warfare, corruption, and technological decay. The Great Rift that split the Imperium in half during the closing years of the 41st millennium has severed communication links between Forge worlds that had maintained contact for 10,000 years, creating isolated pockets of Mechanicus civilization that must now operate independently while facing threats that would have challenged the united strength of the entire organization. The cicatrix maledictum stretches across the galaxy like a wound in reality itself, its roiling energies disrupting not only astropathic communication, but the fundamental operation of many technological systems that the Adeptus Mechanicus relies upon for their daily existence. Forge worlds that once coordinated their production schedules across vast interstellar distances now find themselves cut off from their traditional supply networks and unable to share critical technical information with their sister installations. The binary cant transmissions that had carried the sacred knowledge of the Omnissiah between distant worlds for millennia simply vanish into the warp storms that rage along the rift's boundaries, leaving individual Forge worlds to face their challenges with only their own accumulated resources and expertise. Mars itself, the Forge world prime and spiritual heart of the Mechanicus, experienced unprecedented disruptions as the Great Rift tore through the galaxy's core regions. The planet's vast communication arrays, which had served as the central hub for Mechanicus operations across the entire galaxy, found their signals scattered and distorted by the immaterial energies that now dominate vast swaths of space. Tech adepts monitoring the communication networks reported that routine data transmissions from Forge worlds in the Imperium nihilists simply ceased, their absence creating an informational void that left Mars unable to coordinate the massive industrial operations that sustained Imperial military forces across hundreds of sectors. The Forge world of Lucius, positioned dangerously close to the Great Rift's southern terminus, faced direct exposure to the reality-warping energies that leak from the immaterial realm into normal space. The world's orbital manufacturing platforms experienced systematic failures as their machine spirits became increasingly agitated by the proximity to warp energy, while the planet's surface installations required constant purification rituals to prevent the spiritual contamination that threatened to corrupt their sacred technologies. The tech adepts of Lucius developed new shielding protocols and reinforced their existing void shield networks, but the constant strain of operating in such close proximity to the rift has pushed their resources to breaking point. Ryze's plasma technology expertise became critically important as Forge worlds throughout the galaxy faced increased demon incursions that required the specialized weapons capable of permanently destroying entities composed of immaterial energy. The world's production facilities operated at maximum capacity to supply plasma weapons to Imperial forces across multiple sectors, but the isolation imposed by the Great Rift meant that many of their traditional customers could no longer receive shipments through conventional supply routes. The Forge world's tech adepts began developing new plasma weapon designs specifically optimized for use against demonic entities, incorporating blessed components and purification systems that could maintain their effectiveness even when exposed to high levels of warp contamination. The return of Roboute Guilliman to active command of Imperial forces created both opportunities and challenges for the Adeptus Mechanicus, as the Primarch's strategic vision required massive increases in military production, while his Primaris Space Marine project demanded technologies that pushed the boundaries of acceptable augmentation research. Guilliman's resurrection through the combined efforts of Eldar technology and Imperial faith represented a theological challenge that forced the Mechanicus to reconsider fundamental doctrines about the relationship between flesh, machine, and divine will. The Primarch's enhanced physiology, sustained by technologies that exceeded current Imperial understanding, provided evidence that the boundaries between acceptable and forbidden research might be more flexible than orthodox doctrine suggested. The Primaris project, initiated by Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call, represented the most significant advancement in space marine technology since the original creation of the Astartes legions during the Great Crusade. Call's research had required extensive investigation into genetic manipulation techniques that approached the boundaries of acceptable Mechanicus doctrine, while his development of new power armor designs and weapon systems demanded manufacturing capabilities that strained even the most advanced Forge world facilities. The successful implementation of the Primaris program validated controversial research methodologies, while demonstrating the potential benefits of pushing beyond traditional technological limitations. The relationship between the Adeptus Mechanicus and the new Primaris Space Marines required careful negotiation of theological and practical considerations that affected both organizations' operational doctrines. The enhanced physiology of Primaris Marines demanded modified maintenance procedures for their equipment, while their new weapons and armor systems incorporated technologies that required specialized knowledge to maintain and repair. Tech Marines assigned to Primaris chapters underwent additional training to understand the advanced systems that distinguished these warriors from their traditional Astartes counterparts, creating new specializations within the Mechanicus hierarchy. The Indomitus Crusade launched by Guilliman to restore Imperial control over territories lost during the chaos following the Great Rift's opening placed enormous demands on Mechanicus production capabilities, while providing opportunities to recover lost forge worlds and establish new manufacturing centers. The Crusades' massive scale required coordination between dozens of forge worlds that could no longer communicate directly, forcing Mechanicus commanders to develop new logistics protocols that could function despite the communication disruptions caused by the rift. Explorator fleets attached to the Crusade discovered numerous worlds where isolated Mechanicus installations had survived millennia of isolation, their tech adepts maintaining ancient traditions and technologies that had been lost to the broader organization. The Forge world of Graia, recovered during the early phases of the Indomitus Crusade, revealed the extent to which isolated Mechanicus installations had adapted to their circumstances during the long centuries of reduced contact with Mars. The world's tech adepts had developed specialized techniques for maintaining their manufacturing equipment using locally available materials, while their military forces had evolved tactical doctrines specifically adapted to fighting the chaos cults and Xenos raiders that had plagued their system. The integration of Graia's innovations into broader Mechanicus doctrine provided valuable insights into alternative approaches to technological maintenance and development. Chaos incursions across the galaxy have intensified dramatically since the Great Rift's opening, with demon engines and corrupted war machines appearing on battlefields where the Adeptus Mechanicus must deploy their most sacred technologies against enemies that seek to corrupt and subvert the very foundations of Imperial civilization. The Dark Mechanicum forces that serve the ruinous powers have grown increasingly bold in their operations, launching raids against Forge World installations to capture both personnel and equipment for their blasphemous research programs. These attacks often target specific facilities known to house rare archaeotech artifacts, or SDC patterns, suggesting that the traitor tech adepts possess detailed intelligence about Mechanicus operations and capabilities. The demon engines deployed by Dark Mechanicum forces represent perversions of sacred technology that challenge every principle of orthodox Mechanicus doctrine, their operation requiring constant feeding with souls and suffering, while their corrupted machine spirits actively seek to spread their taint to other systems. Encounters with these abominations force loyal tech adepts to develop new purification protocols and defensive measures, while the knowledge gained from studying destroyed demon engines provides insights into the corruption processes that transform sacred technology into instruments of chaos. The psychological impact of confronting such perverted versions of their own creations creates additional challenges for Mechanicus forces engaged in anti-chaos operations. The Thousand Suns Traitor Legion's raids against Mechanicus installations seek to capture tech adepts whose knowledge and augmentations can be exploited for sorcerous purposes, while their rubric marines prove particularly resistant to conventional Imperial weapons. The Legion's use of warp-based technologies and reality manipulation creates combat environments where standard Mechanicus tactical doctrines prove inadequate, forcing commanders to develop new approaches that combine conventional firepower with specialized anti-psyker weapons and blessed ammunition. The capture of tech adepts by Thousand Suns forces represents a particularly serious threat, as these individuals' knowledge can be extracted through sorcerous means and used to compromise other Mechanicus installations. Xenos technology encounters have become increasingly common as the galaxy's instability brings the Adeptus Mechanicus into contact with alien civilizations whose technological approaches challenge orthodox understanding of proper machine-human relationships. The Tau Empire's continued expansion brings their forces into regular conflict with Mechanicus installations. Their sophisticated battlesuit technology and drone warfare capabilities representing alternative approaches to augmentation and automation that some tech adepts find disturbingly seductive. The study of captured Tau equipment provides insights into alien manufacturing techniques and materials science, though the xenophobic doctrines of the Mechanicus prevent direct adoption of these technologies. Necron tomb worlds awakening across the galaxy pose existential threats to nearby Forge worlds, as these ancient constructs possess technological capabilities that exceed current Imperial understanding, while their Gauss weapons can disintegrate Mechanicus equipment at the molecular level. The Necron's mastery of matter manipulation and energy control represents the technological sophistication that the Adeptus Mechanicus aspires to achieve, creating theological crises among tech adepts who witness technologies that surpass even the greatest achievements of the Dark Age of technology. The recovery of Necron artifacts requires extreme caution due to their tendency to incorporate self-destruct mechanisms and corrupting influences that can compromise entire research teams. The Tyranid hive fleets present unique challenges for Mechanicus forces, as their biotechnological approach to warfare creates enemies that adapt rapidly to conventional Imperial tactics, while their consumption of entire worlds eliminates potential sources of archaeotech recovery. The Great Devourer's ability to incorporate captured genetic material into new organism designs means that Tyranid forces that have consumed human populations often display enhanced tactical awareness and equipment usage that reflects their victims' knowledge and experience. Mechanicus forces engaging Tyranid swarms must balance their desire to study these alien biotechnologies with the practical necessity of preventing the hive mind from gaining access to their own technological capabilities. Resource depletion across the galaxy has reached critical levels as 10 millennia of constant warfare have exhausted many of the rare materials and exotic components necessary for advanced Imperial technology production. The Forge worlds that specialize in mining and raw material processing find themselves unable to meet the increasing demands placed upon them by military operations and civilian infrastructure maintenance, while the isolation imposed by the Great Rift prevents the resource sharing that had previously allowed specialized worlds to support each other's needs. The competition for remaining deposits of adamantium, promethium, and other essential materials has created tensions between different Imperial organizations, while forcing the Mechanicus to develop alternative materials and more efficient recycling processes. The search for new sources of rare earth elements and exotic materials has driven explorator fleets to increasingly dangerous regions of the galaxy, where valuable deposits might be found on worlds controlled by hostile xenos or corrupted by chaos influence. These expeditions face greater risks than ever before, as the galaxy's instability has awakened ancient threats and created new hazards that can destroy entire fleets before they can report their discoveries. The loss of experienced explorator personnel and specialized equipment represents a significant drain on Mechanicus capabilities, while reducing the organization's ability to locate and recover the resources necessary for continued operations. The ongoing quest for the Omnissiah's return has taken on new urgency, as the galaxy faces threats that exceed the Imperium's current ability to address through conventional means. Some tech adepts interpret the Great Rift's opening as a sign that the final age of technological revelation approaches, when the Omnissiah will return to guide humanity through the ultimate synthesis of flesh and machine that will transcend the limitations of both. These theological interpretations drive increasingly desperate research programs aimed at preparing for the Omnissiah's advent, while developing the technological capabilities necessary to serve as worthy instruments of divine will. The discovery of new SDC fragments and archaeotech artifacts continues to provide hope for the Mechanicus's future, though the rate of such discoveries has declined significantly as the most accessible sites have been thoroughly explored over the millennia. Each successful recovery represents a potential breakthrough that could restore lost capabilities or provide new insights into humanity's technological heritage, but the resources required for comprehensive exploration programs strain Forge world capabilities while competing with immediate military needs. The balance between long-term research investments and short-term survival requirements creates ongoing tensions within Mechanicus leadership as they attempt to plan for an uncertain future. The role of the Adeptus Mechanicus in humanity's struggle for survival has never been more critical, as the organization's industrial capacity and technological expertise provide the foundation upon which all Imperial military operations depend. The Forge Worlds continue to produce the weapons, vehicles, and equipment that enable Space Marine chapters, Imperial Guard regiments, and naval fleets to function despite the galaxy's deteriorating conditions. The tech adepts who maintain these production lines work under increasingly difficult conditions, their facilities strained to capacity while facing constant threats from external enemies and internal corruption. The future of the Adeptus Mechanicus remains uncertain as the 41st millennium draws toward its close, with the organization facing challenges that would have seemed insurmountable to their predecessors during the Great Crusade. The unity that had sustained the cult of the Omnissiah through 10,000 years of service to the Imperium has been tested by isolation, corruption, and resource scarcity. Yet the fundamental drive for knowledge and technological advancement that defines the Mechanicus continues to motivate their efforts. Whether the organization can adapt to the galaxy's changing conditions while maintaining their essential character remains one of the most critical questions facing the Imperium's future. The grim darkness of the far future offers no easy answers or guaranteed salvation, only the certainty that the servants of the Omnissiah will continue their sacred duty regardless of the obstacles they face. In the forged cities of Mars and the industrial complexes scattered across 1,000 worlds, the binary hymns continue to echo through halls filled with blessed machinery, while tech adepts pursue their eternal quest to understand the divine mysteries of technology. The Adeptus Mechanicus endures not because victory is assured, but because the alternative, the complete collapse of humanity's technological civilization, remains unthinkable to those who have dedicated their lives to preserving and advancing the sacred knowledge that separates mankind from the darkness that surrounds them on all sides.